We'll now hear from legal counsel on the rules of order and decorum. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Welcome to Portland City Council. To testify before council in person or virtually, you must sign up in advance on the council agenda at www.portland.gov/council/agenda. Information on engaging with City Council can be found on the council clerk's webpage. The presiding officer preserves order and decorum during City Council meetings. The presiding officer determines the length of testimony. Individuals generally have 3 minutes to testify unless otherwise stated. A timer will indicate when your time is done. Disruptive conduct such as shouting, refusing to conclude your testimony when your time is up, or interrupting others' testimony or council deliberations will not be allowed. If you cause a disruption, a warning will be given. Further disruption will result in ejection from the meeting. Anyone who fails to leave once ejected is subject to arrest for trespass. Additionally, council may take a short recess and reconvene virtually. Your testimony today should address the matter being considered. When testifying, state your name for the record. Your address is not necessary. Disclose if you are a lobbyist. If you're representing an organization, please identify it. For testifiers joining virtually, please unmute yourself once the council clerk calls your name. Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much for that. Item 298, please. It's a report.
Accept Understanding Portland Tax Increment Finance District Investment Impacts 2000 through 2022 report.
Colleagues, I'm pleased to co-introduce this report with Commissioner Rubio and hear an update on the impact of tax increment financing districts in Portland from the year 2000 to 2022. To provide context for this report, the City of Portland's fiscal year 2022-23 budget included a budget note directing the City Budget Office to place $20 million of returning tax increment financing in a policy set aside for the Portland Housing Bureau, Prosper Portland, and the Portland Harbor Remediation Project. The same budget note asked Prosper Portland and the Portland Housing Bureau to undertake a third-party evaluation of existing TIF districts and share the report with City Council in advance of the fiscal year 24-25 budget adoption. The goal of the report is for City Council to better understand how outcomes aligned with the original intent of district creation, the changing demographics of the neighborhoods, and to compare and contrast outcomes with other parts of the city. This clear understanding of outcomes and impacts of TIF districts is important as we consider whether and how to establish additional TIF districts in East Portland and within our central city. City Council provided the funding to pay for the analysis, which was completed by Eco Northwest. Before we hear from the consultant and the staff, I'd like to turn this over to Commissioner Rubio to share her remarks. Commissioner Rubio.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm pleased to co-introduce this report, which shares the results of tax increment finance district impact analyses. Although this work was started before I came to the community and economic development team, my team has been committed to seeing this process through with Prosper Portland and the Portland Housing Bureau. This report answers many valuable questions from a quantitative perspective, such as how much private investment did TIF leverage? How many affordable housing units were created? How did TIF impact the demographic makeup for our Portland neighborhoods? And it also shares key lessons learned from this analysis. We know that this report can't tell the full story of TIF and neighborhood change in Portland, as that is very complicated and it's a longer analysis requiring a deeper qualitative analysis with a broad swath of Portlanders who felt the impact of the numbers. The good, the bad, and all the things in between that we're about to hear this afternoon. But it does come at a valuable time given that this council has directed Prosper Portland and the Portland Housing Bureau to pursue potential new TIF districts in East Portland and Central City. We have an opportunity to look back and evaluate what things we want to continue and what things must change as we consider the potential for new TIF districts. So I look forward to having Eco Northwest share the report and to hearing from staff how they're thinking about applying insight from this report and our recent experiences in the Cully TIF district process towards a new generation of TIF districts in Portland. So I'll now turn it over to Lorelei Juntunen and ICO Northwest, who is joined by Kimberly Branham, Executive Director of Prosper Portland, and Michael Bonacore, Deputy Director of the Portland Housing Bureau. Welcome.
Want me to just launch
Yeah,
it?
go ahead.
Okay. Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for having me here today. For the record, I'm Lorelei Jensen. I'm the president of ECHO Northwest and was the lead author of this report. Really appreciate your time and energy today in wading through the complexity of our findings. If you want to advance to can I advance my own slides? Sorry for the moment of, no, I can't. Okay. I will just tell you in that case, thank you. This is essentially a table of contents of the complete report, which I promise you I am not going to go through all of these details today. I'm going to just try to pull out those pieces of information that feel like they're most relevant and have the best lessons learned for imagining what the future of TIF might look like. But I did want to make sure it was clear that it was a pretty comprehensive look at the role that TIF played in creating change inside of TIF districts and where and how those impacts were felt both in the built environment and in the demographics of the city. The full report also includes some summaries of what each of the TIF districts accomplished, their top priorities, investments that were completed, benchmarks, jobs added, et cetera, if you want to reference some of those individual components. But as I said, we're going to just go through sort of a potpourri of the most interesting findings in the presentation today. If you can advance. Thank you. I want to make very clear the purpose of this research. It was very much a quantitative and statistical evaluation of how TIF district investments collectively in aggregate resulted in changes in demographics, jobs, and wages. It is not a district-by-district program evaluation. That would be a different kind of study. We focused on the years between 2000 and 2022 and did not dig into the early days of TIF implementation. And really, we did take a pretty deep look at the demographic changes, but those were not qualitative. And to really understand the full story, hearing the stories of the individuals that lived in these districts would be necessary. If you can advance. This is a map of the districts that we studied. These are, they were in place anytime between 2000 and 2022. It doesn't include the Neighborhood Prosperity Initiative districts. We did not look at those. Our charge here was to try to understand what would have happened had TIF not been in place. So our statistical methodology to do that was to look at census tracts that were inside of TIF districts in 2000 and try to identify census tracts that were not in a TIF district in 2000 that was similar in terms of the housing market conditions, demographics, and zoning. So you'll hear me throughout this presentation referencing comparison areas. Those are those tracts that you might have imagined would have a similar set of outcomes but did not have TIF. TIF is just an investment tool, and throughout this presentation, I'll be talking about the fact that the investment tool was paired with a set of other kinds of changes. Zoning changes, often increases in allowable densities, and really importantly, TIF was often used as an investment tool for infrastructure projects, specifically really major infrastructure investments like the MAX streetcar, the East Bank Esplanade, the aerial tram. It's almost impossible to fully disentangle the dollar investment from the outcome of the collective set of policy changes and investments that were made. So keep that in mind as we go through. The next slide gives you a big overview of the kind of major outcomes in the collective set of TIF districts relative to comparison areas. These are places where TIF more or less did what we expected that it would do. Potentially, I feel like it was a pretty strong magnitude. The magnitude of the impact was maybe larger than expected, but it's not at all surprising to know that there was a lot of development that occurred in TIF districts. 6 times the amount of total square footage of development, 25 times the amount of higher density development, 4 times the growth rate in housing production, 5,300 units of TIF-funded affordable housing, 46% of all of the units that are affordable in the city are in TIF districts. 24,000 more jobs, which generally had higher wages. And most of the TIF districts, when you look at their intended policy purposes, these outcomes are in line with those outcomes. Next slide gets a little bit into what you might call return on investment. And what this graph is showing is the smaller bars that are kind of that pink salmon color is the amount of public money that went in, and the purple bars, the amount of private dollars that were invested in these areas when measured in construction permit valuation. The city's return on investment was for every $1 of TIF investment that came from the city's portion of the overall tax rate, $15 in private investment occurred. And just remember that the city is 1/3 of the total amount of TIF dollars that were invested because it includes the dollars from the entire tax rate, which includes other districts as well. There's a little bit of difference if you look across them, Interstate, North Macadam, Central East Side outperforming some of the other areas. That's primarily a denominator situation. There was a lot more opportunity for investment and development in those areas than in some of the others. And also the market conditions were much stronger. Those are generally kind of closer in areas. The next slide looks more deeply at affordable housing production. Remember from the big overview at the beginning that we had about 4 times as much market rate production in these areas as comparison areas. Here we're looking just at rent-restricted affordable units that were produced. Everything in the kind of darker green and yellow below that black line in the middle had some TIF funding in it, not necessarily 100% funded by TIF, but TIF leveraged other resources to produce those units. And everything above that came from other funding sources or pre-existed. So we saw about 1,000 units in comparison areas and about 5,600 units in TIF areas. So that by the time we got to 2020, 47% of all affordable housing was in these areas. If we can move on to the next slide. We wanted to spend some time trying to disentangle the really complicated interaction of TIF investments with rent and housing price changes. We do know, obviously, that during this time period, rents went up citywide, and they did go up faster in TIF districts than in areas outside of TIF districts when you measure it on average. That is not surprising in any way because there's a lot of new construction that happened in TIF districts, and new construction always comes on at the top of the market. And just if you just went that deep only, that would support a very kind of typical narrative that new construction drives rent up. But we wanted to understand kind of a more granular look at how those changes were felt in older buildings that pre-existed our study period, so that already were on the ground before the year 2000. And this map is helping us to disentangle that. If you look at the kind of hexagonal areas that are in yellow, those are places where there was a lot of new construction relative to other areas, but there were also lower rent growth that was experienced in those older buildings that pre-existed when our study period started. The blue is the inverse of that. Those are places where there was high rent growth, but low or no new rental construction. So the pattern that you can see here is that while yes, when measured on average, rent increased faster in TIF districts, there was an insulating effect that was felt on that existing development, and rent actually increased more slowly in those areas. So that new construction is a really important part of the solution if what you care about is housing stability. I also want to make sure it's clear, we looked at how rent changed relative to where those 5,600 new affordable units were built. No impact. There was no impact of those affordable units on market rate rent growth. If you want to hit the next slide, move on from that. Looking at how TIF districts performed if your concern is small businesses. And here I will say, if you look down at the bottom, you can see the comparison area growth and just sort of scan across how small businesses changed in each of the TIF districts. Some places outperformed, but for the most part, it was kind of on par with or underperforming comparison areas. there's a lesson to be learned here, and I think some intention to be brought to new TIF districts if additional districts are formed. We know that TIF can only be used for capital expenses, so you can help to build some buildings, you can help to improve some infrastructure around small businesses. But if you really want to provide the kind of supports that are necessary to enable small business growth, you need kind of wraparound programming and other kinds of policy supports to help to make that happen. I think that's an important lesson learned, but there is an important data caveat here, which is that most of these areas actually encompass existing business districts in the city. So there were quite a few existing small businesses in 2000 already. So part of what you might be seeing here is really just a denominator issue where there were quite a few already. So there was growth that happened, but there wasn't the opportunity for more growth. Okay, I'm going to keep moving. We need to talk about how TIF impacted the people that lived in these communities. I mentioned earlier that we tried to identify census tracts that were statistically similar in the year 2000 on demographic characteristics. It was not possible for us to match on concentration of BIPOC populations because so much of the BIPOC population was in TIF districts in the year 2000. So when we talk about all of this change that was happening, all of the increase in development, all the infrastructure change, that was very much felt by Portland's BIPOC populations over this time period. And we know that there was a decline in the concentration of BIPOC populations. That's the bar charts that you see on the left side of this slide, 53% BIPOC to 42% and 25% Black to 13% Black in interstate. There was also a nominal change. And so what the map on the right is showing is where there was a decline in the BIPOC population over this time period. I know that this is something that Prosper is aware of and has been tracking on, and obviously lessons to be learned here about paying attention to who is impacted by the change that happens with TIF districts when new ones are formed. I want to talk a little bit about housing precarity on the next slide. Let me first just very briefly orient you to how to read this chart. It's a fairly complex story. So what we're seeing is in orange, places where we saw growth that was slower than comparison areas, and then blue being areas where there was more or faster growth. And I really just want to talk about a few of the columns here, the two on the left, rent and rate of cost burdening. As I said earlier, rent did increase across the city during this time period, and it increased faster in most TIF districts, with just a few exceptions: Central East Side, North Macadam, South Park Blocks, and Interstate. So that's not a surprise. River District grew more slowly than comparison areas on rent, primarily because of the amount of investment in affordable housing that happened there. The cost burden rate, though, which is, again, as a reminder, people who are spending more than 30% of their take-home pay on their housing, cost burden rate actually went up more slowly in this area than in comparison areas. And that's a pretty consistent story across most of the TIF districts. How those two things can be true at the same time requires just a little bit of unpacking. On the cost burden rate, there were three things that were happening. First of all, there was a lot of affordable housing production, and those units people have to rent qualify to be able to get into, so they're not cost burdened. There's also a lot of market rate construction, and those units, you have a similar sort of process where you have to qualify for, you have to show that you have sufficient income in order to be able to receive a lease. So many of the people who were moving into these districts were moving in under conditions where they would not be cost burdened. The other thing that was happening is that insulating effect that I talked about earlier, that existing building rents grew more slowly in TIF districts than they did in other places. So that's how, even though rent went up faster in TIF districts as a whole, you can still see a cost burdening rate that is stabilizing or increasing more slowly than in other areas. The other column I really want to hit on is the change in BIPOC share. If you look at the top, you can see that across all TIF districts, when you look at them in aggregate, it grew more slowly. The change in BIPOC share grew more slowly than in comparison areas, driven entirely by interstate corridor. Because in all of the other TIF districts, the new folks who were moving into those areas were more diverse than the ones that were there in the year 2000. Makes sense? All right, almost done. If we can move to, did we move to the next? Yes, this is a big overview of, a lot of this I've already hit on, but just to summarize it all in one place, you read this chart the same way you read the other one, but we had to add in a black column because the magnitude of impact on private investment per acre was so relatively large. This is just simply a summary pointing out that for the most part, housing production, private investment, with some exceptions, job growth, rent, market rate housing production, and affordable housing all grew faster in TIF districts than in comparison areas. And then a little bit more complicated story, which we already talked about with the change in BIPOC share and in small businesses. So that was a lot of data. What are the takeaways from all of that? If you can advance to the next slide, when we start to think about the potential for new TIF districts. The first is to pay more attention to the complicated interaction between TIF investments and housing production. We know that we need new housing production to address the housing crisis, and we need that production to be both market rate and affordable, and TIF is really good at this. We need that to be part of the story. But we also need to keep in mind that that rate of change affects the people who are living in those districts, and make sure that we are paying attention to reducing systemic barriers to economic opportunity as all of that change is being brought forward. So continuing to pay attention to who is impacted. Continuing to build on community trust. This is a space where Prosper is already investing a lot of intention. I think Coley is a great example of that. I will add, perhaps this is selfish as someone who's a researcher, but I think it's also helpful for transparency and community trust, that just doing a better job of tracking where the money is flowing and how the dollars are being used to create the changes will help to show the through line between public intent and goals and outcomes, and make it easier to do an evaluation like this in the future. And then the last is to just remember the obvious point that TIF by itself is just a dollar source. It's just an investment source. And that to achieve almost all of these sort of complicated public priorities, we really need to be thinking about it as just one among many tools that can be used to help to increase home ownership, achieve, increase wealth, make more jobs grow, all of the kinds of things that we think we might want to do in these areas. And that TIF is a really useful tool for leveraging state and federal dollars, and thinking about it that way as a way to help to make sure that we're bringing in all of the resources that are possible and creating a really comprehensive toolkit to achieve community development in TIF districts. So I'll pause and hand it over to Kimberly to go through some additional slides. Mine was just on.
Testing. Yep, it's just on. Okay. Sorry. Good afternoon, Mayor Wheeler and commissioners. For the record, I'm Kimberly Branham. I'm Executive Director at Prosper Portland. And I want to start by appreciating Lorelei and the entire Eco Northwest team who, when you see the full report, you'll understand the degree of analysis that they pulled together. I also want to appreciate our colleagues at the Portland Housing Bureau and my team at Prosper Portland who, in order to put this report together, it did require a lot of conversation and looking in our historic documentation. So really huge appreciation to everyone who worked on it to get us here today. So Michael and I are going to take just a few more minutes to address some of the questions that you asked us when we were doing briefings, particularly around the financial return on investment of tax increment finance and this question of how the findings that we've learned through the report and through our work together can influence future tax increment finance districts. So I'm going to touch briefly on the growth of assessed value in tax increment finance districts and share how we might apply some of those lessons learned. And then Michael's going to speak to the role of TIF in supporting home ownership and housing production and next steps in the TIF exploration process. So next slide, please. All right, there's a lot of data on this slide, and so I'm going to go through it methodically. The data in this graph is attempting to get at this question that we've heard a number of times which is which districts were most and least successful in growing the tax base? And how did the growth of property taxes in TIF districts compare to the rest of the city? So the green bars represent the average annual growth rate of real property assessed value between 2001 and 2020. So on the right-hand side, those kind of standalone two bars that you see there, you see that the average annual growth rate per acre inside of tax increment finance districts was about 9% annualized growth, compared to about 6% outside of tax increment finance districts. The blue bars represent the total change in assessed value per acre during the same time period. So again, on the right-hand side, the average growth within a tax increment finance district was about $2.1 million in assessed value, compared to about $780,000 per acre outside of TIF districts. What you see on this report is that North Macadam and the River Districts, which helped to spur development, as you're all aware, in industrial brownfields and underutilized central city land, produced a very large change in taxable assessed value per acre, so $9 million and $11 million each over the 20 years. And you'll note that the South Park blocks had the largest overall change in assessed value per acre of $14.5 million, but the rate of change was slightly lower because the basis was higher in 2000. The other districts had annual growth rates and nominal growth that was more in line with the rest of the city. So one of the questions in line with what Lorelei, or one of the ways to think about this is, but for tax increment finance, how would our assessed values have grown? And so one of the ways to think about this is if those areas within TIF districts grew at the same rate as what we saw outside of TIF districts, we estimate that the real property value for the city would have been about $1.67 billion in 2020, instead of what it was in 2020, which is $2.65 billion. So the difference of nearly $1 billion in assessed value creates annually approximately $96 million per year in property taxes that are going to the city, the county, and the state school fund and other taxing jurisdictions. We estimate that within this time period, the city invested approximately $210 million, or forwent $210 million, and that it will take until about 2028 to recoup that investment. And that, so from a purely financial perspective, basically the city kind of breaks even in terms of the resources that were invested or forgone that would have gone to the city in 2028. And the return on investment by 2030 is about 14%, and by 2035 is about 60%. Now, there's a lot of different ways that you can do this analysis, and so I want to just note that this was one way of looking at it, and we're happy to continue to dig into this question, but wanted to be responsive to something that's been brought up a number of times. All right, let's go to the next slide, please. So we want to move on to really the central question of what we learned and how we're applying those lessons learned to future tax increment finance districts. So the report highlights that TIF remains an important tool for community development alongside land use and regulatory frameworks, and it is one that can catalyze job growth and increase housing production. When it's used intentionally and when real estate markets are responsive, it can be an effective tool for inclusive growth. When TIF is deployed alongside land use and other regulatory frameworks without sufficient attention to the needs of vulnerable community members, however, it can exacerbate economic disparities in gentrifying neighborhoods. We know that especially in the first 10 years of the report, the smart growth-focused approach did not adequately address crucial aspects like building affordable housing at scale or the systemic barriers of racism that affect property ownership, business ownership, access to capital, and intergenerational wealth. So consequently, we know that especially in the interstate corridor, Black residents and other people of color faced greater levels of displacement and did not benefit equitably from the investments that were made. In the past decade, the City of Portland, Prosper Portland, and the Portland Housing Bureau have accordingly shifted our approach. Working alongside community partners, we've emphasized housing security and inclusive growth through the affordable housing set-aside and the housing preference policy. Application of an inclusive development framework and community-centered initiatives like the North-Northeast Housing Plan and the North-Northeast Community Development Action Plan. Next slide, please. Collaborations with Cully partners on the development of the new Cully TIF district is a clear example of how lessons learned from previous TIF districts can inform the next generation of TIF districts. That deliberate process and community-centered approach resulted in a TIF district model that's grounded in community stabilization and inclusive growth, and it's inspiring current exploratory conversations in East Portland and the Central City. The co-created vision, priorities, and goals, the early focus on people who are vulnerable to displacement, and the accountability structure seeks to reduce systemic barriers and to increase community trust, all in line with the findings highlighted by Echo Northwest. Next slide, please. The 6 principles that are listed here seeks to really synthesize the Cully stabilization model while emphasizing the critical need to produce housing for a full range of income levels and to support economic activity to advance inclusive growth. Success in the endeavors requires a layering of financial and policy tools and a collaborative approach across the public, private, and community sectors. So as we engage with stakeholders in East Portland and the Central City, and ultimately come to City Council for adoption or updates later this fall, we offer these key principles as considerations for any future tax increment finance districts. Thank you.
Mayor Wheeler, Commissioners, Michael Bonacore, Interim Deputy Director for the Portland Housing Bureau. Next slide, please. I want to talk to you this afternoon a little bit about housing production related to TIF. When we think about the housing needs analysis that Council recently adopted and just how much affordable housing is needed every year in order to first catch up and then ultimately meet our community needs in the long term, the significance of the 8,500 units of affordable housing produced since 2000 can't be underestimated. And it's also very important to remember that TIF can support the preservation of our community's existing portfolio as it ages. Since 2015, the set-aside policy of 45% for affordable housing in TIF districts ensures there's a strong baseline commitment, and we do have the ability to calibrate that based on the specific needs of a district. Importantly, in the interstate district, the set-aside is 70% for affordable housing. As we've done the individual briefings for all of you, we've understandably heard a lot of concern and questions about how communities of color, and specifically the Black community, were displaced because of the way the interstate TIF was implemented. Commissioner Mapps asked whether efforts such as the North-Northeast Action Plan and preference policy have been able to reverse the trend of population decline for those groups. And the answer overall is that it hasn't really. The scale of impact on the market was much bigger than we can now impact at a programmatic level. But it does point to the importance of applying the lessons, as Kimberly was talking about, as we pursue new TIF districts. With that said, I do have some good news about what we have been able to do with the resources available to us. And I want to be clear that this does not suggest undoing the harm that has been done, but it is important that we do what we can in the present. So in the interstate TIF district overall, the population, about 42% of the households identify as communities of color and 13% as Black. In the affordable housing developments where we have applied the North-Northeast preference policy, 86% identify as BIPOC and 67% identify as Black. So a dramatic difference between the general population and those that we are specifically supporting with our housing resources. Our home repair loans and grants in the district have assisted over 1,000 households from 2015 to 2022, meaning we're helping existing homeowners make critical repairs that allow them to stay in North and Northeast. And of the households assisted, 85% identify as BIPOC and 55% as Black. And then finally, we've helped 127 households become homeowners in the district. 96% of those homeowners identify as BIPOC and 86% as Black. And PHB staff are working hard every day to increase those numbers. And then to close out the slide, you'll see the final bullet calls out that TIF funds can also support the development of middle-income housing, which is also indicated as a need in the housing needs analysis. Next slide, please. So as we look towards next steps in the TIF exploration process, you'll see that we're getting closer to some decision points in line with the direction we received from you last June. We're supporting the work of the East Portland and Central City steering committees and working groups to identify priorities, geographic boundaries, and project lists. Those groups are leading community engagement and helping to draft plan components with draft plans for any new TIF districts, anticipated to be largely complete by the summer and council action in the fall. The Prosper Portland Board is expected to formally launch the approval process in September with taxing jurisdiction coordination and a planning commission hearing to follow in anticipation of city council action in November. If approved, TIF resources would become available in the beginning of fiscal year 25-26. That concludes our presentation. Thank you for your time, and we welcome your questions.
Who wants to start? Commissioner Gonzalez, you're up.
Do we have public testimony?
Yeah, probably. Do we?
We have one person signed up,
Well, let's hear them out, and then if they need to leave, they can leave.
Robert Butler.
Mr. Butler, welcome back, sir. Thank you for being here, Robert.
Hold that thought.
We take all the good, the
Robert
bad, and
Butler.
the ugly. I'm
Thank you.
appreciative that you're here. This is your second time in a week. Thank you for doing it.
So I'm not so sure we've learned anything from this, except that we have a pretty good record. Going forward, I think we're pretty stupid. The record is that brick and mortar has been good. The idea that spending money on the harm done by displacement is a little bit frivolous, I think. The human being is very good at displacement. We're very adaptable. And spending money about prevent that is, I can't put it in the equation for spending money. As you know, TIF money goes to everything but education. It steals from education. A third of our property taxes go to education, except TIF. It's zero. I don't like that imbalance, and you know that I've testified about that before, that that should stop. Anyway, haven't succeeded at that, have I? So the River District is a disaster, right? So we're at $489 million. That's the largest so far that we've spent on a district. We really suck in the River District. Now we're going to spend that much money on Cully, which is this tiny little thing with maybe imbalance in population. The fruit salad isn't quite as perfect evenly as we want. I don't know. We spent $400 million there. That's obscene. And it makes me think we have learned nothing from this. But let me give you an example of the winner. The winner on this show is the smallest investment we ever made. What is it? Airport Way. $73 million. That connected the airport with the economy that desperately needs airport for commerce. We weren't there. Airport Way, that project did it for $73 million. created the largest industrial section of its kind in the United States as one unit, Columbia Corridor Association, which I was a founder of, by the way. So we ended up we had 111 million to spend. We only spent 73. That is a huge success. The Cully is the biggest disaster known to mankind. I'm sorry, but it's a complete disaster. Someday we'll have the chart up about how Cully compares with the other in terms of housing. In fact, why did Lentz only have 48 affordable housing units built? 48 according to this report. I don't know. So I think there's a lot to learn, but we've forgotten a lot more. We can do better. Thank you.
Robert, first of all, again, now that I've heard your testimony, again, thank you, because I think you're asking fair questions. And you're
No, I'm
teeing
not.
up, you're teeing up a question I'm going to ask, which is what
Ask me.
what are the specific elements of success? Why are some of these districts so successful, and some of them, quite frankly, are flops? We need to know the answer to that question. You're calling it out. I agree.
We look where we hurt the most and try and do the best leverage we can with our money, with our TIF money. And-
I would argue focus matters. Like, you have to have a very clear objective for each district in advance in terms of what you want those incremental investments to support, and have a clear understanding of why you want those investments supported. I would just make one comment, and then I'll shut up, because we've had a long day and we've still got a long day ahead of us.
I hope I can make a
But
quick response,
I
though.
want people to remember that these aren't investments being taken from one place that could have gone somewhere else. These are but-for investments, so that the tax valuation is effectively frozen as these districts are created, and that it's the incremental tax created as a result of the investments of the district that then go back into the district. And either they're successful, as you point out, Airport Way was, I agree with you, tremendously good bang for the buck, fabulous ROI, whereas others, maybe the investments didn't go into this, it wasn't thought out as clearly, or the goals weren't as specific. So at any rate.
Can I give you an example?
Sure, yeah.
North Macadam. Did we reach our goals in North Macadam? Were you around then?
No. I've
I
been here a
was.
long time, but not
I
that long.
I was there. It was a big deal. Okay, north of Macadam, the promise. The promise, 16,000 jobs, research and development. That was the promise. We had our congressman from Oregon they came here and they said the same thing. 16,000 jobs, think of it. It's a housing project, not even affordable. That is an unaffordable housing project. So some of our problem is that we don't have reality when we think of what solutions are. And we pretend like if we put a lot of money there, we'll have research and development jobs. We didn't get any, hardly, probably. It happens. The Centennial Mill Project, another one, absolute insanity. The U.S. Post Office project is a market disaster. Portland cannot support that project. It's going to die. The same with Cully. Cully can't, you tear down those buildings, create that commercial property, think you're going to get jobs. You're not. You're not going to get anything. You're going to get blight after you tear down the school district building. I give up.
No, and again, I appreciate your being here. Thank you.
You're welcome.
For your contribution. Commissioner Gonzalez, you're up first, then Commissioner Mapps.
I just wanted to air my appreciation for the ROI summary. Was that a compound number or was that an aggregate number over the 10 years? You cited some returns by district.
The growth rate was, so compounded, right? So 6% every year or 9% every year.
So when you were comparing the returns of various districts, you were quoting us that was a compounded number?
We quoted two. So if we were to go back to it, the green bar graph is the growth rate, so annualized compound growth rate, and then the blue graph is the absolute number. So we wanted to show both. So I'll just say North Macadam. So North Macadam had over 14% year-over-year growth of assessed value. between 2000 and 2020. And the actual increase was, I'm looking at the numbers, somewhere around $11 million.
Okay, yeah, follow. So, so in your conclusionary remarks, when you
Yes.
were quoting rates, you were hearkening back to this graph, which is showing us the annualized. I
That's
just
right.
couldn't follow the transition.
That's right. So, Commissioner, we were trying to say, the but for, and I think this is a conservative approach because but for the public-private partnership in River District or North Macadam, there wouldn't have been the infrastructure to make development at all. So we were assuming, let's just say that the growth rate was about 6% within all of the TIF districts. And so that difference is what we accounted for as the return to the city, that growth in assessed value between the 6% on an annualized basis and the 9% is what we anticipated was the return. And we compared that to the foregone revenue. And so that was the analysis.
Got it. And just to buttress off a point the mayor was making, I mean, there is an opportunity cost, right? When
Yes.
we institute a TIF district, we're
That's right.
foregoing a certain amount of tax revenue for some period of time. So
Yes.
we're really trying to figure out on the tail whether the increase in assessed value that's the kind of the question we're trying to tackle here is, does that foregone tax revenue for some period of time justify the increased assessed value on the tail?
Yeah.
Okay.
And I would add that, there are a lot of measures of success or failure that I think we could use. So one of them would be financial. And certainly when tax increment finance as a tool was created, I think there was a lot of sense that this was intended to increase property taxes at a time where cities were seeing a significant decline. That increase, and particularly post Measure 5, where you have, there's such a difference between assessed value and real market value. We think of that as being one of the factors that we look at in terms of the financial impact to property taxes, and obviously something that City Council and our taxing jurisdictions are very, very keenly aware of. And other impacts like the development of affordable housing and also come into play as well.
Well, in the connection with transportation, I think Mr. Butler was getting at some of that, but that's also an interesting one, how we capture the value add. Transportation is always more complicated when you're thinking about it that way. Just a general comment on these type of reports. I'm always interested in small business employment growth, but I'm also interested in total employment growth. And I think there's interest in each of those. So that's just a personal request as much as we can to see both. Because there's an element of caring about both sides of that equation. Can we go to the housing precarity slide 11? We talked a lot about this in the briefing, but I just want to iterate a couple points and then maybe get to the conclusions drawn. So is it fair to say we found increase in diversity in the aggregate or across the board more often than not in TIF districts? I'm just looking at the change in BIPOC share in the various TIF districts. And when I say diverse, the makeup of the neighborhoods more often become more diverse after a TIF district than they were before.
That is true if you exclude interstate. When you look at it in aggregate, that is no longer true. And what's driving that is actually that, that's where most of the new development is located, most of the new housing units. And people who are moving into the city are more diverse than the population that lives here now. So that's what's driving that. But
So,
yes, your statement is correct if you
when-
exclude interstate.
Got it. Well, even including interstate, so maybe not in the aggregate, but there were more districts that we saw increase in diversity than we saw a decline in diversity after a TIF district was instituted.
True.
And this gets at one of the accepted narratives around urban renewal that, we kind of talked through in our briefing is, at least recently TIF districts, we're seeing, we're seeing more diversity post institution of a TIF district than before. And it's just more, it's a interesting, I don't know if it's anomaly, but reality there. And I guess that leads to my question on your conclusions. There's a statement that we need to do a better job of engaging among disadvantaged groups, in districts that are targeted. And I can accept that as a general, proposition, but are the districts that increase diversity, did they do a better job of outreach to disadvantaged groups relative to interstate corridor?
I would, well, you can speak to the programmatic aspects of it better than I can. But again, what's driving it is who's moving in, not what was happening with the folks who were there to begin with, right? And the early years of implementing interstate didn't pay sufficient attention to the fact that there was a lot of change that was happening and that rents were increasing across all of these districts. With only a few exceptions, rent does continue to increase in TIF districts, and that is affecting people who are at the lowest end of the income spectrum, who are disproportionately people of color. So I think the point that's made around paying attention to that dynamic is really about recognizing that there are systemic barriers to opportunity that pre-exist the policy and investment changes that come along with TIF, and making sure that you're doing what's possible to remove those barriers to opportunity so that as the district changes, as new good things come in, everybody can experience it and benefit from it.
Well, I think the challenge when we develop implementation plans for TIF districts, right? The majority of districts experienced increased diversity once the TIF district is instituted. And there's a conclusion drawn that we have to do a better job of engaging with folks that are there on the front end as we're developing a TIF vision. And all I'm calling out is that I'm not sure we've been presented with evidence that the districts that became more diverse did any better a job at doing that upfront outreach than the ones that didn't experience increased diversity. And so just as we're thinking about going forward, how we do these things successfully, if driving diversity and protecting diversity is our goal, I'm not sure you've really presented us that the conclusion supports the way to address that.
I might add that in my mind, I think of TIF districts in really two buckets: the Central City Tax Increment Finance districts, which you see in the top. So a number of those actually predate 2000, but a lot of them were built, were established with a clear alignment to the Central City Plan, right, that you saw. And a lot of that was around creating infill residential, right? We had an imbalance of uses in those days. Now we think of the Pearl District and other places as having a really strong balance, but that wasn't the case in the 90s when people were imagining having a increased amount of residents in our central city. And so the overarching objective in these areas was to bring in population. These weren't centers where you had a significant number of people who were living in there. And this is a broad brushstroke, but I just kind of conceptually. By contrast, when Prosper Portland and the Housing Bureau, our predecessors, were looking at creating new tax increment finance districts in Interstate and Gateway and Lentz, these were really neighborhood-focused tax increment finance districts. And if you look back and see about the goals for those districts, a lot of them were focused on supporting longtime residents at the same time as delivering on key catalytic infrastructure projects and delivering on the new neighborhood plans or adopted neighborhood plans. So in Interstate, that was the Albina plan that was adopted in the 1990s. There was zoning that was associated and changed in the 90s, and then the TIF plan came in 2000. And so, same kind of similar but distinct story for Gateway and Lentz. I think when we talk to people in community, we know that some of what we know is that people who were displaced from Interstate then moved into Gateway and Lentz. And so from their perspectives, and I think as organizations, from our perspectives, having people be displaced from a place where they felt deep connection into places where they don't feel that level of connection and are displaced, while it might numerically increase the percentage of people of color, and if that's always a good thing in a neighborhood to have increased diversity, if it's coming because people are moving out of a place that they have long held connections to, then that there's basically a relationship between those two. So, I think in general, it is very challenging to make, like each district has its own story, and so it's hard to make sweeping or to state that one thing is true across all TIF districts. But just wanted to add that.
Yeah, I think the difference in interstate with a substantial residential population there, I think that is a key difference that's worth noting. Again, some of what you presented actually cuts against some of the narratives around the history of urban renewal. Just looking at the number of districts within certain increased diversity, I found it interesting. So thank you, I'm good for now.
Mr. Mayor, if I may.
Commissioner Maps.
Thank you very much. First, I want to say I really appreciate this report. I think it's excellent work. I think if you juxtapose the report before us today with some of the research I think Prosper put out in 2019, you can really start to develop some intuition behind how these districts, the impact these districts have on the real world. We have a full house behind you, and I want to respect the people who came in here, I suspect, to testify on the next item. So I'm going to try to keep my comments short. First, I want to circle back to a conversation that you were having with Commissioner Gonzalez. Can we pull up that slide, which I think was a summary slide on impacts of TIF districts? If we pull it up on the screen so people at home could follow through. Okay, so you just had a dialogue with Commissioner Gonzalez about how TIF districts got, diversity did not decrease in TIF districts, I think was the summary conversation that I think I heard. And so it would help me if, let's go to the top row of this chart where it says all TIF districts, and then let's go over to the column that says change in BIPOC share, which is colored sort of orange. Which the legend tells us grew more slowly compared to other areas. So help us unpack that. And I think I have some intuition in terms of what's going on here. We just had a 10-minute conversation based on the premise that diversity in TIF districts actually increased compared to other spaces, but I think your summary chart actually shows something quite different.
Yeah, and Commissioner Maps, can I clarify one thing? It came out of our previous discussion, so I want to really summarize my conclusion in looking at was that in more TIF districts, you had increase in diversity than decrease.
Yep.
But I think their point was interstate corridor had such a substantial, unique impact that even if the rest of your districts got more diverse, the difference in interstate kind of outweighs it in the aggregate.
Absolutely, and I know Commissioner Gonzalez is a sophisticated data reader. I wanted to make sure folks watching at home weren't a little bit confused in terms of what's going on. But I do think that the fact that we have some tension between how this data is summarized and how it's interpreted points to a larger problem or a larger. Well, yeah, I'll say it's a problem, or something I'm thinking about in the context of this particular report, and that is there's tremendous variation in outcome across different TIF districts. And as I don't want to get into it now, especially with a bunch of people eager to talk about something else, so I do have some methodological questions about what we're comparing to. It seems like we've kind of lumped all TIF districts into a bucket and are comparing into what a similar bucket would look like. I almost think that when I look at the real results, it seems like doing a matching between individual districts, TIF districts, and maybe non-TIF districts that share similar demographics might be helpful here, but I don't know. And frankly, I haven't spent enough time really thinking through what happened here. But I think that we can all agree that there's a wide range of variation across TIF districts. And that's interesting to me. And it's actually potentially, I think, helpful for us to think about the impact of this programs like this might have as we move forward into the future. So, for example, I think currently we have, we're talking about maybe two different, creating two new TIF districts, maybe one in Cully and one downtown, or maybe Cully seems to be relatively sophisticated in terms of our outreach and whatnot. Is that correct?
Right, so City Council approved the Cully Tax Increment Finance District, so that's in its first year currently. Right now, there are discussions of up to 3 new tax increment finance districts in East Portland and up to, up to 4 new tax increment finance district in the central city.
Okay. Well, thank you. And it's just, that's helpful. And I don't want to pick on Cully, but I think that's the one probably this council and the rest of Portland is most familiar with. Of the TIF districts that we have in this chart right here, which one does Cully look most like? Do you have any intuition around that?
I think it looks somewhere between Interstate and Lentz would be my guess.
Interstate and Lentz?
Yep.
Okay. Well, that's helpful to me. You know, I think given the data that we have, I know TIF districts make a difference. I think depending on particular demographic dynamics, we can, these districts have different impacts on in different areas. I will just encourage Prosper as you move forward to really think about and maybe do a more sophisticated analysis of our expected outcomes, specifically in Cully and the other districts that we're looking at. We know in some cases this could be good, but if if Cully looks like Interstate, one thing that we found in Interstate is it was more likely grow more slowly. It seems like we have a mix of outcomes here. Let's put it that way. And certainly, if we have another discussion in this council about future districts, I hope that we can maybe draw out some lessons learned, or at least some intuitions and hypotheses based on maybe matching it to what we've seen in the past. If that makes sense, does it? I also want to. Well, actually, I'll save my other comments for our final vote.
Commissioner Wright.
Thanks. Should have gone on a walk between meetings. Anyway, my history with understanding TIF is humbling. First, it was hanging out in the Pearl District before it looked like this, when I knew artist friends that had warehouses and they were really cheap and we had a lot of fun late at night, and I miss that. And then on the school board, I was upset about TIF because of what person earlier testified. And then since I've been on this council, the more I understand it, the more questions I have to try to really say anything that's worth listening to. And sometimes that's what I experience when we have TIF conversations is I know everyone's doing the best they can, but sometimes I struggle to see what's concrete and what we really are trying to accomplish here. And so one time I knew it was an economic stimulation, and it did that, I'd say, in the Pearl. Then we, rightly so, acknowledged the displacement that I hinted to earlier. And so now we're trying to respond and keep editing, so it's more of an economic justice aspiration. And so when I look at the section about what did we learn, off script, don't look at any notes. What have we learned, and what will we do so we actually start to see outcomes that are better for small businesses, which was earlier today. And I'm trying to connect those two. And I think when I looked through this, I struggled to find anything that was positive for small businesses. But maybe, again, I'm not reading this right. So don't look at your notes, just have a conversation. What have we learned? What are we going to do that's different going forward? Any thoughts on that?
Sure, Commissioner. I think a couple of non-notes-based conversational reactions are, as it was mentioned, I think there are goals and outcomes that we can aspire to that translate across TIF districts, but it's very important to recognize the neighborhood characteristics in each of them and, sort of respond accordingly. And I think what folks heard in Cully, for example, was they really wanted to make sure that folks who live there and small businesses that existed there were supported, and that work that stabilizes the fabric of the community happened before anything, sort of in terms of a potential large infrastructure project happened. So I think it really I think a lot of the lessons have been manifested in Cully, and as we explore, for example, I co-chaired the
Cully, right now, it's too soon to see what
Too
those
soon,
results are.
yes.
Okay.
But in the Central City TIF exploration process, I co-chaired the subcommittee for affordable housing development. And, the conversations there and the prospect of what this might look like in Old Town is very different than how it might look in Cully or how it might look in, in the 82nd Avenue corridor. So I think it's important, again, just to think about how we translate what we're trying to accomplish regardless of geography, but that we get very specific about what does the community need in each of the places, and then really design our approach based
So
on
the
that.
aspirational goal is to not have displacement, have people build generational wealth within the communities that they live in.
Yes, and to
And-
your
and
point
small
that,
businesses and incubating
Exactly.
that entrepreneurship would be, we all agree that's a really important
hand in glove.
benchmark.
Yes,
And so maybe the question then would be, how can we track that sooner than later so we don't come back 4 years from now and say, oops, that didn't work there? Not trying to be pessimistic, just trying to see that we have some concrete, exciting plans going forward. Let's look at that.
You want me to take that one too?
Yeah.
I think your comments that it feels like there's been an evolution are really fair. And the reason is that TIF is just a financing tool. So
Right.
each district made its own, and the people who put those districts in place made their own choices about what the priorities would be. And those policy choices have evolved over time. And I think what this analysis and some of the additional analysis that my colleagues here brought forward helps to point out is that the impacts are really real, and that what TIF is particularly good at is self-evident, but it's good at building things. And if you want to do anything else in a district that's not about building infrastructure or housing, you need to bring all of the sort of wraparound supports to achieve those kinds of public goals. So thinking about for small businesses specifically, what are those kinds of investments that are going to be necessary to help individual business owners succeed? It's not just the building, it's not just the tenant improvements, it's all those other kinds of wraparound supports. So recognizing that it's to achieve the goals, you have to have a kind of comprehensive package is really critical.
Okay. I'll ponder that. Thanks.
Commissioner Rubio.
Thanks. Thanks for the discussion and dialogue on this, and some of my questions had already been asked, but I just want to really appreciate what you said about this is a tool, and really it's just a tool. The tool may be the same over time, but it's really the application of the tool that is changing, and the lens that we use and the values that we bring into how we apply that tool. So I appreciate the disaggregated data when you're talking about by district and how it's different, because they all are different, and it's important to look at those distinctions because that adds that important dimension. And I'm also wondering too, because that lens that we do bring in the application of this tool, there are points of discretion that are utilized, and so my question to you is to what degree does representation impact those discretionary points of decision making, and how have you seen an evolution? I'm assuming yes, but I just would love to hear more a little bit about that.
Commissioner, representation in terms of oversight or?
Or
I
engagement.
would say in terms of funding, in terms of choice of decisions around investments, who's making the decisions,
Oh.
who's on the end of who's applying,
Yes.
those kinds of things, because I feel like that's a very critical part of this story. And if you look at the evolution of how we apply the tool as well, because I would offer that that would also contribute to increased numbers in diversity and utilization among people of color, BIPOC folks.
Yeah. Commissioner, I think that's exactly right. I think that, most of the neighborhood districts and many of the central city TIF districts were born of infrastructure plans. Wanted a new light rail line, knew that light rail was going to come in, and wanted to make sure that as the upzoning happened, that you could do transit-oriented development. And that wasn't, kind of the case in every time, but by the time we get to interstate, I think that there was a recognition that because it was going to happen in a neighborhood context, that it was really important that neighbors had a sense of, and could help to drive what was happening in their districts. Some of that ended up being baked into the interstate TIF district, but the way that they did it was they assigned people who were on neighborhood associations, so the preponderance of whom are homeowners, disproportionately in interstate were white folks as compared to who was really there. And so we saw over time the need, as we were looking at what was the original intent of the district and who was helping to drive what the investments were. When the Housing Bureau moved forward with the North-Northeast Housing Strategy and we did the Community Development Action Plan, representation and who was making the decisions about investments became critically important and was really heightened. And so we have 2 oversight bodies with deep ties to the community, and they've been responsible for helping to develop the preference policy and to make those investment decisions around Williams and Russell and the like. So I think that as we look at Cully and Cully community members were thinking about lessons learned, that was something that they took to heart, is really making sure that the oversight and who is helping as a community body to advise on that aligns with the intent of the district. And to your point, it's really important to make sure that as new people come into these roles, that they continue to be really thoughtful about what the original intents are, what the policy objectives are, and who's benefited or who hasn't benefited from the investments.
Could I get back to something? You had a really interesting back and forth with Commissioner Gonzalez, and it was about increasing diversity in areas that have established TIF districts. Is that causal? Because I could make an argument that TIF districts are by design put in areas that tend to be less developed and therefore more affordable. And in recent years, as rents have ballooned in the city of Portland, I could make, I think, a rational economic case that people are being smart and moving into those areas regardless of whether they have established a TIF district because they are more affordable. So
We're showing descriptive statistics here, Mayor, so we
right,
haven't.
well, descriptive is after the fact. My question is it causal?
So there was 4 times as much market rate development that occurred in TIF districts than in other areas. And so people were moving where there were units for them to move into, and rents were increasing, and there probably were some kind of market variables that were pushing them in one direction or another as they were making their choices about where to locate. But the fundamental piece of it is that's where the units were. So the people who were moving in, for some reasons that might include displacement from other areas, or just the demographics
But
of
even at the
new
market
residents
rate,
are.
you're saying it's more diverse at
Yep.
the market rate. Okay,
Yep.
well, that's
The diversity in the city is increasing as new
Right,
people
of course.
move here, and more new people are moving into TIF districts because that's where the housing is. So there is a causal link, even though that's not the way that we explored it in the data. The causal link is that's where there was a unit that was available to move into.
That's helpful. That actually gives me some hope, so thank you.
Okay.
Second question, we have been using a baseline of assessed value as a means of determining whether a district is successful or not. Is that the right metric?
Mayor, I think
Or let me ask the
I tried
question
to parse that question a little bit because
Why that particular?
yes, so we were attempting to, this is a question that we've heard from multiple commissioners in terms of the return on the tax, basically for property taxes, how have TIF districts performed. And so I tried to parse a little bit that that's one metric. The financial return is one metric. It's not the one on a daily basis that the Housing Bureau and Prosper Portland are looking at, or within the tax increment finance plans when they evaluate and say, here are the outcomes. It's not a key indicator there. So we wanted to be transparent because we had been requested, or we had been asked to speak to that. And it is
I see.
certainly an informative indicator, but it isn't the one that we're using when
Yeah,
we're
because
thinking
I
about
would say
success.
it's actually somewhat far afield of the conversations I've heard here and frankly with Prosper in terms of why, I've never heard anybody say, let's establish a TIF district so we can create more tax revenue. I realize that the mechanism itself generates excess tax revenues, but that's not the goal. The goal is for whatever it is we're investing those tax revenues in. It's the development that we're trying to create. And that gets me to something I think Commissioner Ryan may have been getting at. I don't want to besmirch him or put words in his mouth, but he at least sparked a thought in my head. But we all agree that interstate led to gentrification and displacement. That is an established fact. But it is also an established fact that from a pure development perspective, it did quite well. There was all kinds of new infrastructure, transportation infrastructure, road infrastructure, business infrastructure, streetscape infrastructure, housing development infrastructure. From a pure development perspective, one could argue it was actually quite successful. And so the lesson learned, as I understand it, is we still want that development. That's still the goal. The question is, how do you mitigate the negative consequences, whether it be displacement or other negative aspects? We're still on the development train here, right? That's our goal.
Absolutely. I think, the philosophy, I think of it as like smart growth as the philosophy, right? The philosophy really was, let's make sure that we have transit-oriented development, that we are building along those lines. And I think that the philosophy was, access to transit and transit-oriented development is good for everybody. I think what we learned in the process is that is a assumption that fails in execution if you don't really take into account systemic racism and other barriers that prevent people from being able to, be homeowners or be a business owner. Or,
right, and that was going to get me to my next point, which is probably a Michael point, which is, so the way you prevent that displacement or alternatively enable people to participate in the economic upside of that development is they own an equity stake in that development through home ownership. Isn't that correct? And isn't that part of the objective here that you're proposing around the development of more housing, affordable housing?
That's correct, Mayor, yes.
Okay, so it sort of gets back to the neutrality that Commissioner Rubio mentioned. This is a financial tool. It's neither good nor evil. It just is what it is. And there is an appropriate use of tools and there is an inappropriate use of tools. And I would encourage, I personally really like this tool. I like having it in the toolbox, but it requires some diligence. And I appreciate that we have this opportunity every so often to really see where we are and hear different perspectives from the community about whether we think we're on point or not on point. So thanks. Commissioner Rubio, you get the last word.
I think that concludes our presentation.
All right, thanks, everybody. Good presentation. Colleagues, I think we'll jump right into the next presentation because it's a big one. But I'm better than I did this morning on making sure that I carve out space.
We've got to vote on
Have to
anything
vote.
in there?
Oh, yeah, I forgot about that little detail. Wait, don't go away. I'll entertain a motion to accept the report. Commissioner Gonzalez
Second.
moves, Commissioner Rubio seconds. Any further discussion on the report? Seeing none, please call the roll.
Ryan?
Yes, thank you, everyone who was up here that just vanished, for that report. It was great, and it obviously got us thinking out of the box, which is really important for TIF, because clearly we haven't figured this out all the way yet. I think the gains in housing are wonderful. I think the projects like North and Northeast are showing a lot of promise that are kind of connected to this response. It's the figuring out how to actually measure and continue to adjust around building small businesses, having the building be done by BIPOC communities, so that we're really building the generational wealth. So really tracking that data to make sure that we're sincerely tracking the economic justice side of this. So I think we're talking about it, and we're finding the language, but it's how do we continue to track the actual results, and then what type of levers do we have to change this? So yes, TIF seems to be a great lever. It does spur on development, but now we have to figure out how it's actually building that generational wealth that we're all visioning. And I think that's somewhat of a puzzle based on the Q&A that we just had. And I think we have to admit that and continue to keep trying new strategies and keep bringing in new entrepreneurs into the network. Government definitely is not going to figure this out on its own. I accept the report.
Gonzalez?
I really appreciate the report. I think it was responsive to many of the questions we asked last time around. I think the different histories across the two districts are fascinating, what's similar and what's different. I think I just put on the record two things I'd like to see in the future. Again, total employment creation and maybe a more nuanced thinking about impact on transportation, because we got into some of the positive impacts, but I'm not sure how I really know how we're going to capture that as we go forward. Last but not least, I think TIF is a remarkable tool. I do worry that we try to do too many things with it and that we actually may dull its positive impact. So I don't know if that's a contrarian perspective on what you've heard today, but it can be an economic engine. It can be something that creates tax value. It can drive transportation investment, but if we try to do a million things, I worry we may dull some of its benefits. Thank you. I vote to accept the report.
Maps?
I want to thank Commissioner Rubio and the mayor for bringing this report forward. I also want to thank staff for their presentation. I authentically appreciate the research that has been done here. I think everyone on council and many members of the public have questions about how TIF districts impact development and impact human beings. I think that we now have some leverage over those questions. Frankly, I haven't fully processed what this data means for some of the projects that we are currently considering, but I think that we have enough data on the table to begin to develop some solid intuition around that. I look forward to continuing these discussions, and I encourage everyone who's interested in this space to check out this report. It really is excellent work. And for these reasons and more, I vote to accept this report. Thank you.
Rubio?
I want to thank Lorelei and Director Branham and Director Bonacor for this presentation today. It was really informative, and it clearly highlights areas where there have been costs and trade-offs of TIF utilization in the past and where we need to do more work to mitigate these things. I also want to state as a reminder that as our application of the tool changes, work around equity and economic justice and economic growth are not and do not have to be mutually exclusive. And in fact, our premise is that they are deeply interconnected, and I think will amplify any outcomes in future projects, which I'm looking forward to seeing further developed. This work is ongoing and requires significant time, so I want to also appreciate the folks who regularly attend, chair, and have facilitated the conversations and presentations in our current TIF exploration committees. They have a lot of time, or they don't have a lot of time, but they give a lot of time and energy in participating and advocating on behalf of their neighborhoods and their business districts, and who keep us leaning into lessons learned in order to prevent unintended outcomes. And also a big thank you to Prosper Portland and Housing Bureau and their team for their work over the coming years to support these committees and who are evaluating TIF as a tool for implementing these priorities. So I vote aye.
Wheeler?
Aye. The report is accepted. Thank you. Great presentation, great discussion. Colleagues, here's what I would propose. I'd propose we jump into the next items, which are the 299th, the 300th, and the 301st items of the year. Hear the presentation, then take a 10-minute break before public testimony. We have a number of people signed up, as I understand it. So I'd like to push forward if we could.
Yeah.
You go to the bathroom.
Great. All right, great. If you could please read 299, 300, and 301, please, a report, and a report, and a report.
Item 299, accept the Bull Run Treatment Project's 2024 annual report. Item 300, accept guaranteed maximum price of $1,003,753,656 from MWH Kiewit JV and amend total contract amount to $1,290,000,000 for construction of the second and final phase of the Bull Run Filtration Facility project. Item 301, accept guaranteed maximum price of $330,207,922 from Bull Run Conveyance Partners and amend total contract amount to $382 million for construction of the second and final phase of the Bull Run Filtration Pipelines project.
Colleagues, before I hand this off to Commissioner Mapps, I just wanted to note that I met recently with the presidents of PGE, Pacificor, and Northwest Natural to discuss my concerns about the impact of increased rates across the city. As you know, we've had discussions here on this dais about the city's efforts in that regard. The city needs to have a disciplined approach to ensure the collective impact of rates and ensure that they do not land on the shoulders of Portlanders during this difficult economic time. With that quick note, I'll hand this off to Commissioner Mapps to introduce these three items. Commissioner Mapps.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Colleagues, today we will receive 3 reports from the Portland Water Bureau on the Bull Run Water Treatment Project. Item 299 is the Water Bureau's annual report on the water treatment project. Item 300 is the guaranteed maximum price agreement for the second and final phase of the water filtration project. And item 301 is a maximum price agreement for the second and final phase of the pipeline work associated with this project. Colleagues, as you know, I have served as the commissioner in charge of the Water Bureau for a little more than 3 years, and I consistently hear 4 questions about our water filtration project. And so I want to take a moment to just highlight what those are, and I'm sure you're hearing the same ones. First, why are we building this treatment plant? Second, does this council have the option to not build this plant? Third, why are we building a filtration plant instead of treating our water with UV light? And fourth, what can this council do to contain costs associated with this project? I want to take a moment to briefly address those questions head on. Question 1, why are we building this filtration plant? Well, we're building this treatment plant in order to comply with state and federal law that require the city of Portland to treat our water for a parasite called Cryptosporidium, which causes diarrhea and other bad health outcomes. Question number 2. Does this council have the option to not treat our drinking water for Cryptosporidium? And the answer is no. State and federal law require the city of Portland to treat our drinking water for Cryptosporidium, and that treatment facility must be in operation by September 2027, which is approximately 40 months and 3 weeks from today. Now, if we miss that 2027 deadline, I expect our federal and state regulators to declare that Portland's drinking water supply is frankly unfit for human consumption. In addition, if we miss that deadline, I expect our federal and state regulators to fine the city every day our water is not treated for crypto, which will both be expensive and a devastating blow to our city's reputation. Further, if we miss that September 2027 deadline, I expect the city of Portland will be forced to issue boil water orders for about 1 million people who consume our water every day, and we'll have to issue that boil water order every day until our water meets federal and state standards. Now, question 3, why are we building a filtration plant instead of pursuing a cheaper option like trying to kill parasites by treating our drinking water with UV light? Here's the history behind Council's decision to pursue filtration over other strategies like UV light. In 2017, City Council chose filtration over other options like UV because in addition to removing crypto, filtration provides a broad set of benefits that will make our water system more resilient and will help ensure continued access to Bull Run water for about 1 million people who live in the Portland area for generations to come. Now, here's one recent example that illustrates why the filtration plant is crucial. You all might remember how last summer we had a major forest fire in Bull Run. That forest fire came within 1.3 miles of our reservoir where we draw our drinking water from. Now, if that fire had gotten even a little bit closer to our water source, ash could have gotten in our water, and the Bureau would not have had the tools needed to make our water drinkable again. However, if we had had a water filtration plant in place, ash that reached our drinking water could have been removed, and we could continue to serve about 1 million or so water customers every day. Now, the final question, which I hear all the time, and I'm sure you hear it too, is what can this council do to contain the cost associated with this project? First, let me be clear and transparent with all of you. This is a major infrastructure project. That will also serve about 1 million people a day, every day of the year, every minute of the day, for as long as the city of Portland continues to exist. We expect this project to cost about $1 billion, which makes this filtration project about the size of Environmental Services' Big Pipe project, which we completed in 2011, and frankly, works great. Since I've taken over the Water Bureau, the city has employed 3 strategies to hold down costs associated with this project. First, we secured a low-interest fixed-rate loan from the federal government for this project, which will save Portland taxpayers at least $250 million. Second, I directed the Water Bureau to redesign and reimagine this project so it is cheaper to build. And third, I am trying to deliver this project on time, which means this filtration plant needs to be up and running in 40 months and 3 weeks. Every day there is a delay, that will cost the people of Portland money, which they did not have to spend. Now, I'm going to turn this presentation over to staff and invite a guest. First up, we'll hear from our leadership team from the Water Bureau, including Deputy Director Edward Campbell and Chief Engineer Jody Inman. Then we'll hear from Water Bureau Finance Director Cecilia Hoon. We also have with us today City Budget Office Director Tim Grew, who will discuss the city's strategies for containing costs associated with this project. Then we will hear from some of our regulators from the state of Oregon. Then we will hear from some of our labor partners and contractors who will help us build this important facility. And finally, we will hear public testimony and hold a vote on accepting these 3 reports. Now, kicking us off today, we have our team from the Water Bureau. I'll hand it over to Deputy Director Edward Campbell. Welcome, Edward.
Thank you, Commissioner. Thanks for the time today, Council. Again, my name is Edward Campbell. I'm the Deputy Director for Portland Water Bureau. We can go ahead to the next slide, please. So not to repeat all the great introductory remarks of the Commissioner, just to quickly remind everybody of what the Council actions are today. We have 3 items, all reports. The first is our Bull Run Treatments Project Report, which is an annual requirement that was first established back in 2017 by the Council as we embarked on this project. Second, we have 2 guaranteed maximum price reports to council. One is for the filtration facility and one is for the pipelines project. So last June, when the council authorized the Water Bureau to go forward with some early works packages for filtration and pipelines, those were the first GMPs, and that's why these have the nomenclature of GMP2. At that time, the council authorized the Bureau to come back to the council with this second set of GMPs. Last year's authorizing ordinance gave the Bureau the authority to conduct the solicitations for bids, which we have done. And today's action would provide the Bureau with the authority to enter into the construction contracts that are necessary for us to complete these projects. Since the GMP reports to council are procurement actions, Kathleen Brenes-Mora from City Procurement is available should there be any questions about the procurement procedures. But other than that, I'll just introduce what we're going to talk about here today through the staff presentation. We're going to cover the benefits and needs of the Bull Run Treatments projects. We're going to talk about the schedule and the budget for the overall projects. We're going to talk about cost and rate mitigation strategies that we're employing. And finally, we're going to talk about the values embodied in the project and the council action today. So we respectfully request your acceptance of all 3 reports today, and I will now turn it over to our Chief Engineer, Jody Inman.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Jody Inman, the Chief Engineer of the Portland Water Bureau. I'm honored to be able to speak with you again about this project, which is a legacy project. So next slide, please. I think it's really important as we look at a project like this to think back a little bit about how we got here. And not just how we got here over the last 7 years, but how we got here over the last couple of 100 years. The water system has created there's a legacy in the water system that we continue to thrive on and enjoy every day. Portlanders are proud of their water, and they should be. Their water comes from a phenomenal source, and we have done a lot of work to protect it. When the water system was established in the late 1800s, it wasn't done the easy way. They didn't just tap into the Willamette and continue to drink that water. They sought a water source that would have been protected, a water source that would continue to deliver clean, clear, safe drinking water for generations to come. That water source was 25 miles east of town on the flanks of Mount Hood. Not only was it 25 miles east of town, but then they built 25 miles of infrastructure, large diameter pipe, hauled into the woods and the forest on horse-drawn carriages. They built this system to bring fresh water to the citizens of the Portland community. And then they and those that followed them spent hundreds of years fighting for protections to protect that watershed. We have that watershed in place. That watershed is protected from logging. It is protected from recreation because of the hard work for those that have gone before us. That is our primary drinking supply, and for a reason. It is a phenomenal water supply. We have a moment in time where we need to do a little bit to help that phenomenal water supply, to be able to continue to have it as our primary source and help us adapt to what we know are changing conditions. Next slide, please. So just in case you happen to have forgot what this project is, there are really 3 projects that we are talking about today when we talk about the Bull Run treatment projects. One, as you see on the left is a site rendering, is a 135 million gallon per day conventional treatment facility. This facility has been specifically designed to be campus orientation, so to keep it compact to provide buffer around it. It is on property that the Water Bureau purchased in 1975, so almost 50 years ago, with an intent with a purpose like this in its intent. It is an allowed use, which has been demonstrated by the recent land use approvals in Multnomah and Clackamas County. It is also really critical to remember that we can't just put this anywhere. It needs to be at an elevation of a size and located in proximity to our existing infrastructure. That minimizes disruption to the community by not having to build additional miles of pipe. It also reduces cost. In addition, keeping a gravity-fed system is a very important seismic resiliency and climate change initiative. We want to make sure that even if we don't have power, we can continue to deliver clear drinking water, which means it has to be at certain elevation. I also do not want to forget this project also includes 7 miles of new large diameter pipe. 7 miles, that's a lot of pipe. That is not an insignificant portion of this project cost. That pipe is critical. That pipe will replace some of our poorest condition conduits we have in the system right now. In addition, it will replace it with seismically resilient pipe. So we're not just doing this for the filtration facility, but these are pipes that we would be investing in replacing anyway as part of our seismic implementation plan. They are our critical backbone for getting water from the watershed into town. So this is an investment in a seismic resiliency project as well. And then the third project, the improved corrosion control treatment, which is also part of the program, was brought online in April of 2022 on time and on budget, and has been successfully contributing to reducing the amount of lead leaching from private plumbing through the corrosion, the improvements it's made. Next slide, please. So we just want to touch back to where we are at with this project. It may feel like we keep talking about this project, and we have been talking about it for a long time. 2017 was 7 years ago, and a lot in the world has changed since 2017. We are through a lot of the initial efforts. We've done our pre-planning, we've done our planning, we've done our design, we've been, or mostly through land use, and we are ready to start this final phase, this final push to actually build it and bring it online in the just over 4 years that Commissioner Mapps reminded us of. So we have done a lot of work, we have talked about it, we are ready, and I think what you'll hear today is there's a community ready to build this. Next slide, please. So I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this slide because Commissioner Mapps touched on it, and we have some experts in the audience who will testify to this. But really, yes, we have to treat for cryptosporidium. It was a rule that was put into place with the Clean Water Drinking Act in 2009. Most utilities came into compliance with that rule in the following next few years. We are the only national utility that did not. We had a variance, and we were able to operate under it for 5 years until we had too many crypto detections. And then the city council did not rush into a decision. It was weighed, it was grappled, there was economic analysis done. There was a recent fire adjacent to the watershed that helped drive the decision that, yes, we need to think long-term, not short-term. This isn't about building a one-trick pony that can kill a bug but can't do anything else for us. This was about thinking about what we're going to leave to the generations that follow. So the time to make that decision was 2017, and we have been acting on that decision since then, and we are excited to hopefully be able to continue starting to build it. Next slide, please. So I've been told to get rid of my inner engineer here and really share with you. I think it's important that you all understand that we take our job very seriously. We care highly about the community, all aspects of the community. We care about cost, we care about affordability, and we care about continuing to deliver clean drinking water to the community in emergencies. And these aren't just words on a slide. These are emergencies that we see every day. These are emergencies that are happening, right? These are emergencies that we were afraid were going to happen in 2017, and we see today. We see increased climate change, more strong storm events that stir up the water. We see increased cold weather. We see increased risk of earthquakes. Forest fire. I don't know how much to touch on this one, but as Commissioner Mapps, we saw this with a direct hit in the middle of our watershed last fall. And if you've ever heard of zombie fires, you can look it up. It may not be over, but we were extremely lucky, and I can't help but think how different this conversation would be if we hadn't immediately after that lightning strike had cool weather and no wind that gave people time, the over 600 responders that had to respond to that fire. And there were areas they can't reach to put out. They're deep in gullies, and we are watching them today. Once the fire was mostly out and the rains came, everybody went back to business, but the Water Bureau sweated. We stayed up at night. We worried. Those rains hit. What was it going to wash into the watershed? Were we going to have to shut down the Bull Run supply? Were we going to have to haul in, media treatment on trailers, park 100 trailers at our headworks site, pump water through them at PGE's increasing rates, for potentially months and years to come? I added a slide you can see here. We have our beautiful watershed. you can see what a portion of that watershed looks like today. If the fire had not been contained, that is what we would be counting on to clean our water, and that is not going to cut it. I will say, in addition to these things, filtration provides multiple other benefits. It removes organics, which then means we need less chlorine to treat our water. When we need less chlorine, we create less disinfection byproducts, which are cancer-causing. Filtration will also create greater stability in our system, and that removal of organics will help with the stability of the system. That will reduce the lead that is leaching out of the private plumbing. There are multiple benefits from filtration, which is why the decision was made and why we firmly believe it is the right decision. And I want to build this because we want to be able to ensure that we as the Water Bureau leadership and you as the city have a response when the community looks to you and says, this emergency happened, why don't I have clean drinking water? And UV does not provide any of those benefits. Next slide, please. Okay, back to my engineer. So market conditions across the country, I don't think it's any surprise. The costs have gone up. Costs have gone up for everything. We are around the average for this project with what other water and wastewater projects are seeing nationally and locally. Our projects are third from the right, which shows about a 47% increase from 2019 until today. So if you read the paper this morning, the number that's in the paper, that reflects that 47% increase. So we have been transparent about where the costs have gone. And what we will also share with you is that even though these costs have gone up, they are already in the rates because we heard you and we hear our citizens and customers. Next slide, please. So in order to try to have some consistency, this is the chart that we have been showing you for the last several years as part of our annual report. And what you see there is that the total estimated cost for the project are $2.134 billion. That is a $300 million increase over last summer when we were here. And I will talk more about that in just a moment. What I also want to share is that you'll notice the contingency line, as is normal as a project moves from pre-design, design, and into construction and has bids. It is normal for the contingency to drop as those costs are shifted into capital construction. The other piece I want to point out is that those capital costs include more than just the pipelines and the facility. They also include program costs, they include design costs, they include land use attorneys, they include full suite of components. That is not just these two packages before you today. Next slide, please. So why have costs gone up? Well, like most other utilities and infrastructure projects, we are challenged with market capacity. There is a lot of work out there, and there continues to be a lot of work. While we are all extremely thankful for the recognition that infrastructure is getting old and it needs investment, those dollars are coming in faster than we can create jobs and people to build them. This creates competition, and particularly to be able to get the skilled labor that we need to build a project as important as this. There do continue to be supply chain issues, especially for some materials and equipment that did not disappear after the pandemic quieted down. We just saw the recent bridge collapse, which is a typical type of impact that can, or typical type of event that can impact how long it takes to get material and equipment. Drought is reducing the amount of flow through the Panama Canal, which increases how long supplies can get through. Schedule compression is another component of the cost increase. We had wanted to get started last fall. We had planned to get started last fall, but we need to get through our land use process and all permits before we can do that. We did start the early works construction as soon as those permits were in place, or those approvals were in place. In order to maintain cost, which I know is a high concern of everyone in this room, the best way to do that is to maintain momentum on construction. This may sound counterintuitive, but every week, month, year that we delay, we incur more inflation that is just cost we cannot recoup. There's no way to offset that. Costs will continue to go up, whether it's by astronomical inflation, as we've seen, or just normal inflation. On a project of this size, that is very hard to recapture. Next slide, please. So I know there are a lot of concerns about the increasing costs, and I fully recognize that. The last two annual reports that we have brought to you indicate a significant increase in cost with 350 and 300 million. Specifically, those are primarily tied to the action of moving our designs into the bidding market, into the market, and getting market rate bids. We spent a lot of time. So, last year when we came to you, we brought you the prices that included the bids to do the early work. That drove up that first cost increase. The second cost increase is in large part due to the increase in cost that was received by the market to do the GMP2. There are other additional costs that we have been impacted by, such as insurance and our own internal labor rate wages. The most significant risk that we had on this project was how the market would react when we put it out to bid. So if you want to control cost, one of the most effective things you can do is to move these packages forward, because that will help us to lock in the bids that our community has been holding since last fall. It will enable us to lock in the bids, get under contract. We have a contract that specifically talks about how we deal with changes in terms and scope. That protects the city and the contractor. I'm not going to lie, we still have risks. That is very well known. Our primary risk going forward is delay. Delays that can be due to land use appeals, which you're all aware of, delays due to supply chains or weather. We have other regular construction risks. You never know what you're going to find when you start digging in the dirt or tunneling. Those still exist. But what you'll also note is that between what the Water Bureau controls and the contractor, we have over 150 million in contingency. That should address a lot of risks, but I can't guarantee that it will address every single one, especially if we have a long delay. Next slide. And actually for this, I'm going to turn it over to our Director of Finance, Cecilia.
Thank you, Jody. I'm Cecilia Hoon, Water Finance Director. As Jody explained, the cost has increased for the filtration projects, MY. But even with those cost increases, we are still going to be within the rate forecast that we have shared with you in early March when Council approved the water annual rate ordinance for fiscal year 24-25. The 7.9% retail rate increase that you approved for July 1 will not change with these cost updates. The rates forecast we shared during the rate hearing will also not be changing. We will stay at the 8.1% increases, and as shown on the slide, about a third of the increase is needed for water system replacement and maintenance, so that's just ongoing system maintenance. About a third for these filtration projects, and about a third of the rate increase for inflation and other factors that can impact our cost to allow us to maintain our current service level. The cost increase does mean that the allocation of that 8.1% increase will be a little more to support the filtration projects and less to the capital program as we adjust the capital program to absorb the cost increases, which I'll get into a little bit more in the next slide. We are committed to staying within the forecasted rate increases of 8.1%. That's assuming revenues and expenses are as currently projected for the forecast. Next slide, please. So as mentioned, one of our rate mitigation strategy is to revise the 10-year capital plan to offset the cost increases. We'll be making adjustment to the distribution program and the seismic plan implementation in the capital program. The adjustment that we're making to the mains replacement program will result in delaying the planned increase to replacing mains. Through our asset management work, we had planned to start ramping up on the replacement of our mains in years 6 and 7 and so forth of the 10-year plan. But we will now plan to continue to replace mains at the current rate a few years longer before stepping up to do more mains replacement. So I want to be clear that we're not reducing the amount of mains that we're currently replacing. We're just maintaining our momentum for a little longer than we had planned. We'll also be making adjustments to the seismic plan implementation, which means implementing the seismic plan over a longer period, but we will still achieve the seismic resilience benchmark a decade before the recommended timeframe established in the Oregon Resilience Plan. Again, we're still doing seismic work. As Jody mentioned, the pipeline is part of that work in our plan. These adjustments to the capital plan will not change our focus to keeping the water system maintained. So I want to stress that. We want to make sure that our water system is maintained even with these adjustments in the capital plan. So that's one rate mitigation strategy. The other is we currently have a $726.6 million WIFIA loan. We have it at a very low rate to help fund these projects. We'll be working to pursue a second WIFIA loan for the increases to mitigate impacts to the rate forecast. So WIFIA loan offers repayment flexibility that's not typically available with revenue bonds. Repayment on the WIFIA loan begins in 2032, so that's after completion of the project, with a longer repayment period to mitigate rate impacts. We have energy efficiency incentives from Energy Trust of Oregon, and we'll also work to pursue federal energy credits that are now available. Cost containment will continue. The project team has already reduced what costs would have been by at least $200 million by going through multiple rounds of value engineering to build smarter. We have strong contracting processes and controls in place to manage and monitor costs. We put together quarterly progress reports that are submitted to EPA as part of our WIFIA loan requirement. We're also required to conduct annual financial audits on the project. So we'll be managing and monitoring the project costs very closely. And with that, I would like to turn it over to Tim Grew, City Budget Office Director, to provide CBO's financial review and analysis.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Mr. Mayor and council members. For the record, I'm Tim Grew, the city's budget officer. And at the outset, I want to be clear that the City Budget Office, also known as CBO, is focused on financial aspects of the filtration project, not construction and operations. Our review also is based upon information provided by the Bureau, and what I will cover today is consistent with our financial statement, a financial impact statement that's provided in the council calendar today. I also want to be clear that in projects like this, whether they be small or big, what we look for is what happens if something goes wrong during the project. And what I'd like to do is give you very briefly why we decided to support moving ahead with this project going forward. First, generally speaking, the Water Bureau's financial position continues to be strong. And although this project requires a large amount of debt and along with that significant rate increases, the financial position should continue to remain strong. The City Debt Management Division indicates that the water system credit rating will remain a strong investment grade at AA category, assuming that the council continues to support the rate increases necessary for this project going forward. The Bureau also, as you've already heard, has three primary strategies to mitigate additional expenses should they occur for these projects. First, they are pursuing the Water Infrastructure Finance Innovation Act, second grant of $325 million, which should reduce costs, and the Bureau indicates that that is a probable award that they will receive, but it's not done. Second, they are also rebalancing the capital plan over the next 10 years to maintain planned rates. In total, the distribution mains capital projects plan to spend $558 million over the requested 10-year CIP, and now plans to spend $408 million over the proposed 10-year CIP, a $150 million reduction. So they are trying to offset some of the costs that they are experiencing going forward. The Bureau indicates that delaying these projects will not affect water systems, operations, or maintenance, though the trade-offs in decreasing some of the proposals that they are using to offset could bring inherent risk, particularly in the area of seismic. CBO notes that customer rates would notably increase above if previously forecasted if the Bureau did not decide to prioritize and realign their CIP program. As a third strategy, and something we always look for in these projects, the Bureau is also looking to draw down on their rate stabilization fund. The Bureau has plans to make transfers to the water fund, from the state stabilization account over the next 10 years. Factoring for these adjustments over 10 years, the rate stabilization account is projected to have an ending balance that is $51.8 million lower when they reach the 2033 and 34 dates. The estimated remaining balance of the fund at that time will still be approximately $165.5 million. CBO affirms that mitigating the increased expenses associated with GMP2 with the rate stabilization account is an appropriate use of this type of account. That is what it was developed for, is to stabilize rates. The Bureau is also pursuing these three strategies in order to keep rates within the forecast of future rate increases provided by Council each year. While this may be challenging, according to the Bureau, it is not planning on revising forecasted annual rates increases as a result of the GMP2. And this is an important thing. Assuming that no unknown increases to operating costs and assuming actual rate increases are consistent with the rate forecast, the Bureau plans to increase rates annually by 8.1%, which was mentioned earlier, through FY 2030. Afterwards, the Bureau projects currently forecast that rate increases of 4.5% will be required. The Bureau also indicates that even with this project, they remain committed to continuing its affordability programs to assist low-income customers in paying their bills going forward. CBO notes that for projects this size, the cost of the project can still increase even after receiving and approving guaranteed maximum price. Things happen. Change orders, which are common in large construction projects, are possible. These can arise from many reasons, including unforeseen challenges related to the work site or rescope needs from the Bureau. For this reason, the Bureau has a $103.8 million set-aside contingency for the filtration project to cover these types of costs. In conclusion, the reason that CBO elected to support moving forward with these projects, as indicated in the CBO financial impact, based upon the three-year strategy plan to maintain rates and continue core operations that have been included in the plan, also the likelihood of a continued strong rating for debt service, the possible $325 million grant that they are going after, which will reduce costs, the commitment to continue low-income assistance programs, the managed use of the rate stabilization fund, and a contingency to cover cost adjustments. CBO is supportive of the Bureau going forward with these revised filtration projects contingent upon these mitigation efforts. However, CBO also recommends to the Council that frequent, in-depth, transparent monitoring reports be regularly provided to the Mayor and Council and the public throughout the project. I'll be glad to respond to any of your questions at this point.
Does that complete the presentation?
No, if we can. Go
We
ahead
will
to the-
have other invited guests, Mr. Mayor, but this panel is done.
Actually, I have 3 more slides, and I promise I will go quick.
Okay, well, let me pull
Yeah.
the dais, because I know I have questions, and I know they're going to have questions, and I know we want to get through the invited testimony, and I know that for the sake of our staff, we need to take a break when we're done with the presentation, but I don't want to lose you. So can you commit to staying until
Oh, we're not going
we
anywhere.
have the
they're here.
opportunity? Okay, great, good. Continue.
Okay, I will go quickly because we have other people. So what we want to share with you is that, we have been working with you and listening to your leadership since 2017. We have our commitments and our values for the project, for our health, which you have heard about and you're going to hear more about, for our economy, which again, I'm hoping have heard about, and you're going to hear more from the community behind me about why this work is so important to get moving. And then for our future, which I hope we are convincing you that this is a critical legacy project. Next slide, please. I'm not going to read all of this on the slide. we have been actively working to try to engage and inform the community about this work. We have multiple different avenues through which we do that. What I really want to point out here is that as we move into construction, we are opening up additional avenues through monthly or coffee with the contractor monthly, as well as a construction hotline and the ability to sign up for text notifications to understand where work is going on in your area. Safety is our highest priority, and that is why, in particular, the construction hotline is critical to ensure that we are meeting the commitments we made through land use, our commitments to the neighbors, and maintaining a safe environment for everyone in the community. Next slide, please. I'm going to go through these two really fast because you're going to hear more about this. This project is a phenomenal, is a large project, and I am extremely excited to be able to report that I wasn't sure we could meet the new RWEA goals, which brought the co-bid participation up to 25% versus the previous goal of 20. And not only did that we do that, it has been exceeded, and you're going to hear more about that today. On the facility itself, there's almost $300 million that's been going to co-bid firms, and I want you to note that a lot of that is minority-owned businesses. Next slide, please. And on the pipelines, a similar and even larger percentage, with over $102 million going to co-bid firms, or 34% of the project. So between these two projects, we have almost $400 million going to co-bid community. Next slide. And that is the end of our presentation.
Great, thank you. You have invited testimony?
We'll have another couple of panels. If you want to take a break now, you could question this group, or we could take a break. If we need
I've got questions for this panel, but if they're willing to stick around, then I say let's keep charging forward. I can write my questions down.
That makes sense. I think we're going to hear from our state regulators next. So next up, colleagues, I would like to invite Andre Orso, Administrator of the Oregon Health Authority Center for Health Protection, and I think also available to answer some of our questions. We have Carrie Salas, I hope I said that correctly, Unit Manager of the Drinking Water Services Technical Services Unit. Thank you so much for joining us today. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Commissioner Mapps, Mayor, fellow commissioner, other commissioners. My name is Andre Uso. I'm the administrator for the Center for Health Protection and Public Health at OHA. I'll let my colleague Carrie introduce herself.
Yeah, I'm Carrie. Oh, is this working? I'm Carrie Salas. I'm the technical manager of the drinking water program, and yeah.
Welcome.
Okay, I just have a few prepared comments, and then we're available for questions as well. So under the authority of Oregon statute and in agreement with the Environmental Protection Agency, OHA is the primacy agency to administer the Safe Drinking Water Act in the state of Oregon. Since 1974, the Safe Drinking Water Act has been highly effective in protecting public health and has also evolved to respond to new and emerging threats to safe drinking water. Disinfection of drinking water was one of the major public health advances of the 20th century. Disinfection was a major factor in reducing typhoid and cholera outbreaks that were common in American cities in the late 19th and early 20th centuries. In the past decades, we have learned that specific microbial pathogens such as Cryptosporidium, which can cause illness, are resistant to traditional disinfection. Thus, the EPA promulgated and Oregon adopted the Long-Term 2 Enhanced Surface Water Treatment Rule, also known as LT2. That required public water systems using an unfiltered water source or uncovered water reservoirs, such as Bull Run, to treat their water for these pathogens. The purpose of the LT2 rule is to reduce illnesses linked to Cryptosporidium and other microbial pathogens in drinking water. Systems serving over 100,000 people were required to treat for Cryptosporidium by the year 2012. At that time, crypto had not been found in the Bull Run over several years of monitoring. However, in 2012, Portland Water Bureau requested and the OHA granted a variance to LT2 rule requiring treatment for Cryptosporidium. However, when crypto was detected in 2017, OHA revoked that variance, and OHA and Portland Water Bureau entered into a legally binding compliance agreement, the BCA, which included interim protective measures and a deadline to install filtration, the treatment method chosen by Portland, by September 30th, 2027. Portland is the only remaining large public water system with unfiltered water source in the country without crypto treatment. Crypto poses a potential public health risk and can cause cryptosporidiosis, a potentially serious illness. Symptoms can include diarrhea, vomiting, fever, and stomach pain. While people with healthy immune systems can recover without medical treatment, people with severely weakened immune systems are at risk of more serious illness. For example, in 1993, there was a cryptosporidius outbreak in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, sickening over 400,000 people, killing 69 individuals, and the city was put on a 10-day boil water notice. Delays in the implementation of the filtration project will result in the violation of the compliance schedule, which may lead to significant ramifications for Portland Water Bureau, such as continuing risk to human health and potential civil penalties. If crypto is detected at levels where a boil water advisory is warranted, Portland Water Bureau customers and people drinking Portland water will be advised to boil their water until crypto levels return to baseline. This could be brief or extended, impacting households, restaurants, grocery stores, and hospitals. Portland Water Bureau provides drinking water to over 1 million people in the Portland metro area, including vulnerable populations such as pregnant people, infants, and those with compromised immune systems, as well as serving hospitals, schools, child care facilities, and food and beverage producers. OHA urges Portland to continue to make progress on constructing the filtration plant in order to meet the established schedule, which is essential to attain compliance with the Safe Drinking Water Act and protect public health. Those are the end of my comments for today, but I'm here, and so is Carrie to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you.
And Mr. Mayor, we have one last panel of invited guests to represent the contracting community. I might recommend inviting them up. That way we could at least cut them loose should they need to get on with their days. Great. Unless you wanted to question our panel before right now.
No, why don't we hear from the last panel?
Okay. Next up, colleagues, we have 3 partners from our labor and contracting community who will speak about this project. We have Kevin Lux. Come on up. Kevin's with the Columbia Pacific Building and Construction Trades Council. We have Maurice Roming. Come on up, Maurice, with O'Neill Construction Group. And we have Trampus Simmons with the Carpenters Union. So I want to thank you all for joining us today. These are folks who will actually be out there in the field helping us build this project, and we very much appreciate you joining us today. And I will turn over the floor. I'm not sure if we have someone who wants to go first.
Maurice is pointing to me.
All right, Kevin.
Oh, hello, and thank you, Maurice. Hello, commissioners, mayor. It is so good to see you all again. For the record, my name is Kevin Lux, and I'm the executive secretary treasurer of the Columbia Pacific Building and Construction Trades Council, representing approximately 20,000 union construction workers across 10 counties in Oregon and 3 in Washington. And we are excited and ready to get to work on the Bull Run project. Pre-apprenticeship programs are connecting with populations that have new hope because they don't have to go to college. They can have a better life thanks to a union apprenticeship. And our training centers have been recruiting an increasingly diverse cohort of apprentices as jobs are ready and available for them. They're growing and learning their trades, and for those who are journeying out, the world is full of exciting opportunities. These are truly inclusive, with mentoring for women and BIPOC workers to advance in their career as far as they desire. From apprentices to journey level, these jobs are allowing real people to see and feel financial freedoms that they haven't felt before. The larger issues around affordable housing are met with a negotiated wage and benefit to make sure that workers have the means to afford housing for themselves and that barrier is reduced or removed. We're talking with everyone in and running for office about the need for more access to accessible childcare. Our members feel this struggle just like workers in all sectors do. We're committed to partnering with solution makers across industries to find and innovate real change. The Bull Run Project is a special opportunity for our local workforce. Our commitment to training and getting it built on time and under budget are unwavering. These feelings run deep. We love to point to the things that we've built. There's pride in our work and for the families that we're able to raise and care for. There's pride in providing reliably clean drinking water to millions of people over the next 100 years. Bull Run will allow generations to come to say, hey, see that? Your great-grandmother built that. And that'll be a testament to our collective determination, skills, and ambition. For these and so many more, my affiliates and I urge your support for moving this project forward, and thank you for your consideration.
Thank you. Thank you. Maurice.
And thank you for having me. I'm Maurice Raming, president of O'Neill Construction Group. Thank you, Commissioner Maps, Mayor, Commissioners. You know, this project for the minority contractors that are behind me, they're supporting this. This is the biggest utilization project that the city, and I'm pretty sure the state, has ever seen, right? We are excited to be able to go forward with this project. A lot of times we talk about, you know, percentages, and we talk about inclusion. This project has both, right? With, you know, Commissioner Mapp's staff, Jack, I want to do a shout out to that. They actually listened to us. They allowed us to just hear our concerns, and actually they met our concerns and exceeded our expectations, right? So we are excited about this project. What we look at is these are projects that we can look at our families and say, we worked on that project. Our kids, we could say they worked on this is what your grandfather did. These are legacy projects. This is wealth building for our communities, right? And we're not just talking about the contracting community, but we're talking about the workforce community, like you just heard. So we're going to be able to create economic opportunities for not only contractors and not only workers. We're excited about this. What you guys have done here is truly amazing, right? I've sat on enough diversity studies, and I'm moving from my notes because this is deep in my heart right now. I sat on so many diversity studies and so many different things where the percentages are extremely low, or the utilization is utilization that's not counted for BIPOC communities. They're counted for majority communities that are just starting off. And this is the first project that I've seen that has a real commitment and real equity built into every process of this. I commend the Water Bureau. I commend MWH Kiewit for actually inviting us to this table over, I think, 3 years ago and said, we want you to participate. And they kept us at the table. And I commend the mayor's office and Commissioner Maps for also making sure that we were able to participate. Rubio's office for checking in and saying, okay, are you guys good? Dan Ryan for checking, Commissioner Ryan for checking in and saying, hey, are you guys being able to participate, right? I am proud of what you guys are doing here today. I am proud to be a part of this. I look forward to this project, and I just want to thank you. Yeah, I'm usually criticizing a lot of stuff. I am not criticizing this. I'm not criticizing because you guys delivered on a promise, and that is very rare. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Maurice. And Mr. Simons, thank you for joining us.
Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for inviting me. My name is Trampas Simmons. I work for the Western States Regional Council of Carpenters. Today I come before you to highlight the unwavering commitment from the Western States Regional Council of Carpenters in supporting the Bull Run project. Let us delve into some of the key talking points that underscore our dedication to this project. Workforce. Our workforce stands ready, capable of meeting the local labor requirements of the Bull Run project. We recognize the importance of this endeavor for our region's growth and for its prosperity. And we are committed to providing skilled workers when needed to ensure that this happens. Recruitment. The carpenters have continued to recruit. We've never really stopped recruiting. We're recruiting locally all the time. As construction needs in the region and the Bull Run project evolve, we will remain agile in our efforts to bring skilled individuals to this project. As far as diversity and equity, diversity is not a buzzword for us. It's a core value. Our workforce reflects the rich tapestry of our community. And we will uphold the regional workforce equity agreement diversity goals. Our commitment extends to apprentices, minorities, women, ensuring that all have equal opportunities. In conclusion, the Western States Regional Council of Carpenters stand shoulder to shoulder with this Bull Run project, and we are ready to build a bright future for our region. I have 4,100 members that are eager and really hope you move this project along. Thank you.
Thank you. And Mr. Mayor, I believe that completes our formal presentation from both staff and invited guests. I noticed that we have about 14 people signed up for public testimony on this item. And I know probably our translators need some time to to take a break too. I will let you decide where we go from here.
Yeah, so here, colleagues, just a quick reminder, we have a budget session tonight at 6:30. I want to make sure we leave time for everybody to be able to get wherever they need to be, and who knows, maybe even get something to eat today. But I want to make sure we honor the people who've shown up for public testimony. We will give them the full 3 minutes, which they are allotted. But let's be as succinct as possible. Let's think about what questions we want to ask the panel and be as succinct as possible. It is now 4:20. We'll take a 10-minute break. We will recess until 4:30. We will reconvene. I would like us to start, if we could, with a few key questions. Maybe everybody could think about 1 or 2 key questions for the panel, go to public testimony, and then wrap it up with further questions of the panel if we could.
Sounds good.
Great. We are in recess. use my small token wooden hammer. My plasticized token hammer. Thank you, everybody. Sorry, I know everybody's friends and all that, but let's keep moving because I know a lot of people have other commitments, family, kids, all that today. So let's keep moving. I have a couple of just quick questions, and I'll turn it over to my colleagues. They may not be quick. First of all, I want to make sure I heard something correctly. I want it on the record. I don't want somebody 2, 3, 4 years down the road to say, wait a minute, that's not what I understood. I understood you to say that you believe that this project stays on course with the discounted bonds that you're able to issue through WIFIA, potentially a second tranche of WIFIA bonds, which I very much would support and hope we gain access to. And Tim, you said, provided that council supports the rate increases associated with the project. And I want to make sure I understand what that means, because I first heard there wasn't going to be a rate increase associated with the project, but I think I know what you're saying. There is already in our projections an 8% per annum increase.
That's correct.
That has been assumed. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay, and so you're saying as long as the currently projected rate increases are accepted, but are those rate increases as a result of the project, or are they incidental to this project?
I'm going to have to leave this to this group. I think it's a combination of both. They've, at least for their 10-year capital plan, they're trying to keep the rates at 8%, and I think going forward as well. And that's why the mitigation things that they're doing to keep the rates at that level are so important.
Okay, well, I just want us to be really careful about how we talk about this and be transparent, because I read something in the paper about this won't cause rate increases, or maybe I misinterpreted or I'm misspeaking, but I want to be very clear. You can't build a $2 billion project with our limited financial pool and not impact rates. Am I right?
Right.
Okay, so what we're expecting, unless there's some significant unforeseen consequence or happening, it is 8% per annum between now and 2030.
Correct.
That's correct.
And I can't do the math quite in my head. An annualized 8% increase between now and 7 years is what in gross terms?
There is some compounding that is
Yes,
also
there
in
is
there.
indeed.
So I won't do public math.
Okay, but
yeah.
I just want people to be aware that 8% per annum compounded is not an insignificant increase. And so I want that on the record, just so everybody's crystal clear about that. That's thing number one. This is the largest capital construction project in the city's history. I want you to know that I have a great deal of respect for the Water Bureau. I think that your history has shown diligence. You have been conservative in your management. You have been effective in terms of holding the lines on rate increases. But this is a one-off project. It is unique. And I'm wondering what kind of outside advice we are getting. What kind of relentless, objective, outside scrutiny are we getting to ensure that we are keeping the lid on costs, that we are complying with the regulations that we have heard are required, that we're required to abide by, and that we are not building a Cadillac solution to achieving those objectives, but in fact are being very frugal and cost effective in terms of the strategies we employ. And the reason I ask that is Tim's budget analysis, and I certainly trust him on his budget analysis, is dependent upon what he's hearing from the Bureau. So I need to know who's watching the Bureau in terms of keeping the lid on costs, ensuring that we're building something that achieves the regulatory objectives, but is not the Cadillac solution, but is a more frugal, cost-effective solution. How do you respond to that?
Do you want to start?
Sure. So we do have contracts in place, or we will have contracts in place. And there are certainly processes within the contract to make sure that we're following the work as described in the contract. We do have reporting that we have to be doing to EPA as part of the WIFIA loan. So before they do any disbursements of the loan, we're submitting to them all of the expenses. They're looking at it to make sure that it's relevant to the project. So we're doing that. We're also doing quarterly reports to the EPA to give them progress reports on how we're doing coming along with the project. So all of that is in place to ensure that we are following and doing, per the contract that we have in place.
Okay, so thank you for that answer. I appreciate it. Let me just say, I would support, for your own benefit and your own protection, rigorous independent analysis and oversight of this project at every step going forward. I would support making that happen. And again, it's not because I don't trust you, it's because I think it'll help protect all of us. Tim and I have had many discussions about financial controls of late. And as we move to the new form of government, I want to ensure that we have financial controls that go down into the bureaus that is independent, or as independent as possible, so that we're not just simply relying on the bureau's own internal analysis for the project they themselves happen to be managing. And here we are with the largest project. I want to make sure that we have rigorous independence. There was another caveat I heard, that this is what we're planning provided there are no delays. I also read in the paper that there are people who very much hope to delay and want to delay this project by exercising their constitutional rights to defend themselves against what they see as an unjust or unfair or ill-advised project. So I guess my question is, what kind of delays have you already assumed, given that people have been quite transparent that they will seek to delay this project?
Okay. Yeah, so we've been very involved with the community, as well as the community on the land, or through the land use of this process. And I think we've looked at how to address the concerns related to land use in multiple ways. One, we took longer to get through land use than anticipated. And in part, that was because we wanted to make sure that we had a robust and thorough record that addressed the concern, that addressed the land use conditions, and that also we had done outreach to the community. Now, we may not have reached the same conclusion as the community, but we have really worked to try to understand and incorporate that into the project. And we think that is supported with the decisions that were made. We have been very well aware of it, and those strong decisions will help us as we go through the additional steps. We have a strong record to build from as we go through the Land Use Board of Appeals and/or further. We are tracking, we have multiple attorneys that are assisting us in this effort. We continue to try to engage with the community to address their concerns. And when it comes to delays, we are very well of the different points and how long they may potentially be. So again, we're working with the county, we're working with our own internal staff, and then we are working to really be able to be best prepared. We've also been talking to OGR about this issue, about how we find the most expedient way through any potential delay that we have to be able to have that resolved quickly to get back to work.
Okay, that's helpful, and I don't know what the specific outreach is to the aggrieved parties, but maybe there's some compromise or settlement or something that moves us beyond that risk of further delays. Tough question that you may or may not be able to answer. So the cost of this project has continued to escalate along with the cost of every other capital construction project probably in America in recent years. Is there a breaking point? Is there a point at which the cost of this project exceeds the benefits? And if so, what options are available to us at that point?
I would say I may be the wrong person to ask because the benefits to me are phenomenal and critical to our being able to continue to deliver clean, clear drinking water in an emergency and or what are becoming common events. What we have really focused on is how do we deliver this project, which is a critical tool, while maintaining the commitment to the 8.1% rates. We know, and we don't like those high rates either. We understand, we all pay bills, we understand rates are important. So we've spent a lot of time. We worked with the contractors before we even thought about bringing this package to you. We did find cost savings opportunities. We have reinforced with them repeatedly, this is a community benefit project. We need your partnership, and they have responded. We have also, sorry, I lost my train of thought. I've been so engaged on how we got to bring this to you. This is not a number we wanted to bring to you, but it is a robust package. We have included contingencies. We have tried to be very clear with the contractor what we understand our risks are, so we're really minimizing surprises that we see coming forward because we've had those detailed conversations. And I forgot what your original question was.
Well, and I'll ask my last question, and maybe that'll spark some creativity. So what are we doing to mitigate cost increases? What are your overt strategies that you are currently pursuing so that when you come back in 6 months, we're not looking at another significant increase in the cost estimate?
So in order to control costs, as we mentioned, we have risks. Risks, you're very well aware of asset management. There's likelihood and consequence. So we are looking at how to best mitigate both of those things. Where we can reduce the likelihood of something happening, we are doing that. So that, for instance, is our land use process. We are trying to reduce the likelihood of a significant outcome through the hard work that we're putting into it. Consequence, that is working with the contractor. We have a list of value added or cost savings options that we're going to continue to negotiate with them. We were negotiating with them over the last couple of weeks, and we've actually brought some of those costs down. We have mitigations in our contract. We have excusable delay periods that we've built in. We have specific, really detailed requirements of this project for scheduling to be able to see conflicts in the schedule that could cause delay that bring on cost. The contract also includes escalation terms, which is a common risk tool, right? So once we're under contract, things like escalation become determined. Things like how delays are mitigated and or if they cost. Not every delay may cost, right? There may be options that we can pursue that don't actually achieve cost.
Okay, good. And this is what I like to hear, and I'd like you to be overt about that. I'd like you to stay ahead of, anticipate potential ways that costs could escalate, and really think proactively about what those strategies might be, so that we're not back here just saying, hey, we need to increase the threshold again. Last question, I promise, then I'll move to Commissioner Gonzalez. So it was mentioned during the presentation that the Water Bureau enjoys a AA credit rating as a result of its good fiscal management on projects previously. Thank you for that. Congratulations. I note that part of the strategy to finance this project is to spend down the reserves, which objectively strikes me as a good use of these reserves. But I also wonder, will this have any impact on the credit rating for the Bureau and its other capital construction projects?
So we do have Matt Gerhardt on the call. Maybe it's best if we ask him to.
Oh, I see. Hey, Matt, did you hear the question?
Hi.
Hey.
Yes,
Great.
I did hear the
Thanks.
question.
Thanks for being on.
Yeah, absolutely. My pleasure. For the record, Matt Gurok, debt manager in BRFS. With this project, I mean, it is a lot of debt, but it could put pressure on the credit rating. But I think the key is that the debt is more temporary and it gets paid off over time, and that the financial position would be strong still after that point.
Is there a process, Matt, by which we could reach out to the rating agencies and get some sort of a preliminary opinion or some bracket in terms of what the impact might be?
Yeah, we can look into something like that.
I'd appreciate it if you could. Thanks. I'll sleep
Yeah,
better at night.
absolutely.
Thanks. Commissioner Gonzalez.
Actually, I just want to build on the last question. I think sometimes the credit rating agencies are reluctant to give opinions. So can you kind of give us a high level, like when will they opine on pieces and when they won't, related to capital?
We got Matt here, so let's let him respond, and I can contribute.
So the credit rating agencies, they'll do an updated opinion whenever we do a new bond issue. So whenever we go to market to issue additional bonds, they'll look at what the financial state of the Bureau, as well as the projections of the Bureau.
That's not, just to be clear what my question was, I think the mayor was talking about sort of proactive pre-issuance advice from the credit agencies, and I'm just curious I know there's scenarios they won't advise. I mean, I think we were talking about financial policy the last time this came up, so I'm just curious.
Matt, I think the issue is whether or not we can get a readout from whatever agency we're going to prior to the bonds being issued to get some input.
Well, yeah, thanks, Commissioner Gonzalez. Yes, and that is correct that they don't provide advice, but they do have documented rating methodologies that we're familiar with and we can review. And we can look at those metrics that are within the rating methodology to see how it could impact.
Yeah, and if I could just jump into Commissioner Gonzalez. I share Commissioner Gonzalez's thoughts on this. I'm just mindful of the fact in other discussions we've had, Matt, spending down our reserves was a potential red flag for the rating agencies. Now, I want to make sure that that's not the case here.
Yeah, if I may, the rate stabilization account was created, and we have been using it as intended to build up on the reserve.
Oh, so it was specific to this project?
It not specific to this project, but that is an intended use to build it up. So when we started this project, we had raised rates to start building on that rate stabilization account. Okay. And that is, and so when we draw on it, it is the intended use of that account.
Okay.
Matt, I believe we've been working with you to also be looking at the rating agencies' metrics in how they rate utilities. And based on your analysis, we would still be within the AA category of, our debt ratios and our days cash on hand, our liquidity positions. Do you want to speak to that? I think that's what I'm hearing is the concern is that we might, our credit rating may be compromised.
Yeah, I can build upon that. So, within the credit rating scorecard, liquidity is one of those metrics that's accurate. And one of the strengths that both the Water Bureau and BES have is that they have strong planning standards. So within the projections, there will always be a minimum amount of liquidity of days cash on hand to protect the credit rating. So right now, the rate stabilization fund has been built up with the planned use of it for this project, but it will never reach a floor that would be adversely impact the credit rating.
Yeah, no, you help supplement. Okay. I mean, I think that's helpful. I'm not sure we're going to get the clear read outside of internal analysis, but that's helpful. And just to project out, so we're talking 8.1% for a number of years. I think just to put that in real terms for ratepayers, they're paying $100 a month today. In about almost 9 years, that's $200 a month. I mean, it doubles within that 8-9 year period. I guess this does build on a separate line that the mayor was getting at. In terms of representing ratepayers that are going to be paying this for a number of years, I'm surprised there isn't more external oversight, given the size of the project, and that really it has transcended a number of governments. I mean, the next government will inherit this project. So and just the natural turnover of commissioners and other electeds, I guess that's just a question as to, we have a pub. Have they been engaged in this process? Do they support it? It begs the question, is it the right external body to advise on these matters? I don't know if this is much for a question for you.
Commissioner Gonzalez, I was going to say, I think that's a leadership question. So let me jump in here. I very much welcome this. The pub is involved in helping monitor the Bureau's finances. I completely agree. This is such a unique project that it might, in fact, it would be worthwhile setting up a separate system to a separate advisory body to oversee and provide guidance and counsel to make sure that we stay on track and stay on budget. I will pledge to you and the people of Portland to work with my teams and the electeds on council to stand something like this up. Certainly, Tim, I'm glad you're here. I will certainly be seeking your counsel on how we can establish a body like that.
And I appreciate that. And it's really from two angles. There's the element of who is the pure advocate on behalf of ratepayers, and that speaks unconditionally on behalf of the people that are going to have to pay this. No other agenda. This is what's going to cost me for the next 10 years. But then there's also the technical expertise to supplement our own internal expertise, the legal environment, the design decisions that we're going through. And whether that's the same body or if those are two distinct bodies, but given us the biggest capital project in our history, it's sort of trying to make sure. And that, again, I want to emphasize that's not second guessing anything the Water Bureau is doing.
Sure.
It's just the magnitude of the project, complex legal environment on multiple fronts, federal compliance, state compliance, and you're going to deal with land use in Clackamas County. Good luck. It's that it's just trying to understand how we build out a complete team that guides not just this form of government, but the next one through this.
Great points. I'll tell you, the public utility, you talked about maybe two advisory bodies, one representing the interest of water consumers. My initial take is that is a lane that the pub historically, and I believe in statute, occupies. And frankly, I'd love to really get them engaged on this heading into the future. And given the size and scope of this project and how technically challenging it is, I think it might actually make some sense to have an outside advisory group. Jody, go ahead.
I support that, and we're willing to work with you to find that balance. One thing I will state, the design plans do go to the Oregon Health Authority for review, so that it was one of the compliance milestones that we met, so they have been reviewed by the Health Authority, so we do have some check there on the legal, are we meeting the requirements that way? Another thing that we did during the design process, especially multiple times, we talked about that value engineering. That wasn't just an internal process. We had an advisory board that we picked from national utilities, where we actually brought other national utilities that own, operate, and specifically operate these facilities frequently or daily. That's their job. Brought them in to help advise us as we were looking at building the facility. What are those key risks when you're inherently building a facility we want to watch for? What is something we don't need? Do we need 3+2? Do we need to have 2 redundancy, or can we live with 1 redundancy? So there has been that effort. I do agree, as we go into construction and things change, we can certainly support some other.
And last question, but because I feel like I've asked this every time you guys have appeared, but just the waiver that we had for a number of years is, I think you spoke a little bit to where we sit in the context of other national utilities on filtration, but are there any other major U.S. cities that currently have a waiver that we're aware of?
No. Not from treating for crypto, no.
Okay.
One last question, if I may jump in here. It'll take how long will it take the Water Bureau to pay off? Do we anticipate it'll take us to pay off the cost of this project?
So when we issue water revenue bonds, they're over 25-year terms.
Okay.
The WIFI loan will be a little longer.
Okay. And how long do we expect this plant to be in service?
100 years. I mean, most building structures are 100 years long.
Okay. Well, thank you. And colleagues, that's one thing that I want us to think about. We have multiple kind of overlapping timelines. You know, we have sort of our short-term budgeting, which is, you know, we're looking at rates about 10 years out. You know, we're going to pull loans for 20, 25 years. We'll serve you know, this plant, as we stand it up, will serve 3 or 4 generations of Portlanders. You know, right now, not only do we serve the city of Portland, we also sell water to some of our neighbors. So we're talking about a consumer population or customer population of today about $1 million. You know, compound that out over, you know, let's just say 20, 30 years. I think that might be an appropriate way to think about the time and cost of this particular project. But thank you very much. Cecilia.
If I may, I just want to clarify, maybe I wasn't clear when I talked about the rate increase of 8.1. I want to be clear, we're talking about only the water portion of the, you know, water, sewer, and stormwater bill that's going up by 8.1.
Okay, thank you.
Sewer and stormwater have their rate increases that are separate from that.
Right.
Got it.
And generally, when we combine them together, well,
Thank you for the clarification. All right, public
move on.
testimony.
A real quick one on
Sorry,
that
Dan,
question.
go ahead.
So
Commissioner
thanks for bringing that up, because there was an earlier slide, not today, but earlier, that compared sewer and water. And we all know that sewer had the big pipe, speaking to ratepayers out there. And we saw that increase during that big project that was necessary, just like this is necessary. So is that now going down, the sewer portion, because big pipe is paid for? Just like this one will supposedly go down once we hit that magic number?
So
Of
I don't want to
2030?
speak on behalf of BES.
You'd have to talk to Matt. I don't have that information with me right now, but I'd be glad to get it for you.
Let's make sure we get that out there.
Okay,
It was in
we'll
a
do that.
previous.
That's a very
slide.
good question.
Yeah.
I'll look into it.
And it was smart that we combined the two. Thank you, Commissioner Matson. Yeah.
Great. Public testimony. I'll turn this over to you, Rebecca. Thank you.
Our first testifier is online, Charles Seco.
Charles, welcome. 3 minutes, name for the record. You do not have to give your address.
Am I on now?
You sure are.
We see you and hear you. Welcome. Thanks for being here.
Thank you. Mr. Mayor, members of the council, my name is Charles Seco, and I want to thank you for this opportunity to comment. I listened to last year's annual report and related discussion and was struck by Mayor Wheeler's questioning of Ms. Inman regarding the escalation of project costs. At what point do we just pull the plug, the mayor asked. And then you pressed Ms. Inman, is this the final price? To which Ms. Inman responded, yes, except for we don't know what we don't know, which was explained as construction surprises. Thank you, Mayor Wheeler, for asking. So here we are, less than a year later, and construction has not begun. So we still don't know what we don't know, and yet the cost has significantly risen more than 16% to $2.13 billion. And let me repeat, that's before construction has even begun. Remember the initial cost estimate of 350 to 500 million? Are all the costs included now? The cost of all the condemnations, some still ongoing? The cost of outside attorneys and consultants retained for the 2 land use processes? The significant costs associated with the many conditions of approval imposed by Multnomah County? The cost of demolishing the brand-new $20 million ICCT treatment facility? The cost of decommissioning the pipelines that will be abandoned if this pipeline is built, or if this plant is built? I'm confused by the assertion on page 5 of the annual report that states, even though the costs have increased, there is no increase to rates as a result of these increases. Just last week, the PUB was shown a slide that indicated the annual rate that you're discussing now of 8.1% for the next 5 years. By my calculation, the impact of an 8.1% increase on a hypothetical $100 water bill came to 47.6 over the 5 years. If you take that out to 2030, as was just indicated, that's 72.4% increase in rates. And if this project gets built on schedule, payments on the WIFI alone will just be getting started at that point. What's the impact of the loss of the 3 largest wholesale customers in 2026 on the remaining ratepayers? Has the Water Bureau fully informed you about the pending LUBA appeal that includes 7 agencies and Oregonians like Thousand Friends of Oregon Association? Have they explained the cost implications of the LUBA process? Have they explained the very real possibility of having Multnomah County's decision overturned or remanded? The impact of a stay on construction? You have the option to hit the pause button today. You have the option to ask the city auditor for an objective third-party analysis that provides clarity on these matters, some that you have raised just minutes ago. You have the responsibility to your constituents to make a fully informed decision. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next, we have Lauren Corder.
Hi, Lauren.
She was to join us online, but is not here.
I see her.
She is.
Yeah, I see her.
Oh.
It's down there at the bottom.
How do you see her?
Laura Belson?
Oh, I see it.
Number 3 is Laura Belson.
Laura, can you unmute?
Oh,
There you are.
I'm Laura, but Lauren is also here. I see her. But should I take her spot?
Looks like Lauren has joined us. Lauren Corder, you can unmute.
Oh, okay.
Okay. Hello. Can you hear me okay?
Yep. Hear you and see you.
Okay, great. In 2017, the Bureau proposed filtration as their method to treat crypto located at Carpenter Lane in rural East County with a unanimous decision, and it was based on a $350 to $500 million price tag. In 2019, the cost climbs to $850 million because the Bureau simply forgot the pipes. In 2021, the price grew to $1.8 billion, and the Bureau receives the largest WIFIA loan in the history of federal funding program to support one of the most expensive filtration projects in the country. Today, you are being presented with a new price tag of $2.13 billion. So what is the Bureau's answer to buffer the new growing price tag? Today, it's another loan. So altogether, a $1 billion loan. So why are the costs growing so quickly? Filtration is the Cadillac method, and the most expensive location was chosen. Filtration touts all the bells and whistles, and we are enamored with how it will solve all the potential catastrophes. With regards to location, it is far off the main conduit, and water pipes must run underground, requiring creative and very costly engineering. Further, condemnation and land settlements are in multitude due to surrounding residents, schools, and farmland. As the mayor has asked in the past, when do we pull the plug? When is this going to be too expensive? This has gotten so far out of control. Will council finally demand the facts and no more half-truths and scare tactics by the Bureau? Council chose filtration under the premise of no more than $500 million. You have successfully used the South Shore wells if the Bull Run water is questionable. The feds, and this is really important, folks, the federal government is not forcing us and requiring us to build a $2 billion facility. Please stop with the hurry up. We have to do this or it will get more expensive strategy. And according to the OHA, which I have in writing, the bilateral compliance agreement can be reversed. And you have the opportunity to get the city out from under this trophy project. Last, as part of the rural community, we will not back down. We have more at stake than you do. You will miss your deadline. I said, you will miss your deadline. We will continue to be a pain in your side and delay this with appeals and further litigation. Thank you.
Thank you.
Laura Belson.
Hi, Laura.
Hi. Hello.
Hi.
Should I start?
Yeah, go ahead. You bet.
All right. Hi, my name is Laura Belson. I'm here to ask you to provide detailed oversight to the Portland Water Bureau. I attended the Portland Utility Board meeting last week and heard the PWB's presentation about the necessity of building the filtration plant
and how it is the preferred option to UV to treat cryptosporidium. I would like to respond to some of the points raised. The first point from PWB, quote, UV is no longer an option for meeting Portland's regulatory obligation. The city chose filtration in 2017 and entered into a binding compliance agreement based on that decision, end quote. I am asking the City Council to investigate this claim. We have an email from Carrie Salas, Technical Manager from OHA Drinking Water Services, that states, quote, as for modifying the BCA, since the agreement is bilateral, if both parties agree to modifications, the BCA can be modified, end quote. Which is true. Can we get out of this or not? If it is not true, do we need to spend over $2 billion to fix a problem that can be fixed for $100 million? A second point from the pub presentation. Filtration addresses high turbidity due to erosion, wildfires, or increasingly intense storms. UV provides no treatment for turbidity events, such as after a fire or storms. The Water Bureau has shut down the Bull Run water source 11 times since 1985, just 11 times in 38 years. When it is shut down, we switch temporarily to the backup well system. We did so last year with the latest Camp Creek fire without issue. I have a copy of a letter from Amanda Fritz in 2009. It states, when there was a fire in the Denver watershed, which has a filtration system, their water supply still had to be shut down. We have a report of another in New Mexico in 2022 that was closed down for a considerable time after being overwhelmed by sediment from a large wildfire. Again, I am asking City Council to take a hard look at this project before committing to a boatload of debt for future generations. Will it really work in a big fire, or will it be overwhelmed like other similar systems in the country? Can our current system of switching to backup wells continue to serve us? Can it be good enough? I have plus one to all the testimony that came earlier about costs. Is all this really worth it? To my knowledge, there has been 0 detections of cryptosporidium at the tap, and never a person who's gotten sick from it in Portland. Is this problem worth spending $2 billion on? In 2018, when this plant was approved, councilors were adamant that the $500 million number was a fail-safe, an almost preposterous outer limit that was never going to be reached. I join the others in asking you to ask the city auditor for an objective, third-party analysis that provides clarity on the ballooning costs of this plant and allows you to make a fully informed decision on behalf of your constituents.
Thank you.
Robert Butler.
Mr. Butler, welcome back.
Oh, I feel I shouldn't be welcome.
You're always welcome, Robert.
Robert Butler.
If we
Portland.
all agree on everything in this room, our democracy's in serious trouble. So we welcome you.
Well, I wanted to add to Commissioner Knapp's comment that he had 4 things. Actually, I think there's 5 things. And I'm going to talk about what I think is number 1.
Okay.
And that is transparency. I say that if it's not in writing, it's not true. And I don't see the writing. I've heard all of this testimony, all these numbers running around here, not a single spreadsheet. And here I'm facing the reality that this project's done that, and our rate stays like this? Really? So, I don't believe it until I see it in writing, see the spreadsheets, and I don't believe it. I'm not so sure I'd believe it then. So, yes, we need a cost comparison of the UV approach and the filtration approach. That analysis I've asked for before. I'm not gaining any traction on that, but I'm here again saying we don't make decisions like this without the numbers, the 2 numbers, the UV number and the filtration number. Operating costs, capital costs, debt costs, and replacement costs. We have those numbers on paper. If we don't have that, I don't know why any lender would trust us, quite frankly, if we don't do that. So, yes, I'm surprised to hear today that we have the risk of LUBA. I've been to LUBA lots of times. It happens all the time in my industry. Boy, that's no place you want to go. I mean, you think you got a cinch deal. Please, it's not there. So there's got to be something to deal with that because it's just not pretty. Yeah, I think there are Goldman Sachs and lots of places to go for a city like this to get advice on debt financing, for example. And what I hear, our approach to financing, our planning, is to look in the rearview mirror and see the current rating of AA. Geez, this is not what you do to finance, to understand your finances and to take care of it. So my last point is, it's really, in my opinion, the Oregon Health Authority it has the reins right now. I'm not kidding. I'm sure of that. And I don't think the governor is going to step in and whatever. But this gal just said it. No one's getting sick from Bull Run, and nobody ever will, the way things are going from crypto. It's just not going to happen. It's going to happen right on the streets where all those tents are. That's where the crypto is because it's a sanitation issue. We don't have one at Bull Run. We got the best water system in the United States. Thank you.
Thank you, Robert.
Terry Seco. D. White.
Where's D? Welcome, D.
Hello, my name is Dee White. On August the 2nd, 2017, at the 2 o'clock City Council meeting, Commissioner Nick Fish introduced Resolution 37309. The agenda item read, comply with Oregon Health Authority's order to treat drinking water from the Bull Run watershed for cryptosporidium by submitting a compliance plan and proceeding with updating the design and construction of an ultraviolet treatment facility. Seconds before the motion to vote on this resolution to build a UV treatment plant, Commissioner Fish proposed an amendment that substituted construct an ultraviolet treatment facility and replaced it with construction of a filtration plant. That day, the council chamber was filled with Bull Run water activists, including myself, who were there and had already testified against any treatment, including UV, because there had never been any problem with cryptosporidium in our Bull Run watershed. There is still no problem with cryptosporidium in our Bull Run watershed. If you go to the e-files on the city auditor's page, you will see what an administrative jumble the records are on this legislative ploy pulled by an elected official. Commissioner Fish's motion was ruthless and capricious, and the mayor and council's vote was undemocratic. And if I may remind the audience, Mayor Wheeler, you were the mayor at the time. Just that quickly, treatment went from a UV plant at a little over $100 million to a filtration facility, which was, they said, going to cost between $350 and $500 million, and is now at $2 billion. And as Commissioner Mapp said in today's Oregonian, he cannot guarantee that the cost is not going up again. Today, I'm asking you all to move and vote to table this filtration plant indefinitely. Mayor Wheeler, since you were mayor at the time, this undemocratic amendment was made and subsequently passed unanimously. I implore you to do the right thing, and that is to quickly amend Resolution 37309 again. Pull the plug on filtration and build a UV plant instead in order to comply with the Safe Drinking Water Act.
Thank you, Dee.
Charles Waugh.
I'm Charles Waugh, and as was noted by PWB, though only in passing, the filtration plant has been appealed to the Land Use Board of Appeals, whose process may take up to 8 months. That's per their own website. And that it, quote, may also be extended for other motions or for cases involving particularly complex issues. Now, this project at over $2 billion would seem to be, to quote, a particularly complex issue. This must be a disappointment to the PWB, since in their 2018 technical memorandum referring to citing this at Powell Butte instead, they said, and I quote, Powell Butte land use reviews in the past have been appealed to LUBA by the Neighborhood Association and other public members, creating additional monetary costs, approval delays, and political scrutiny for the project and Portland Water Bureau. Well, that's where you are now. And yet they keep coming back to the city council, hat in hand, asking for more money while touting their amazing progress by having spent over $100 million so far with no land use approval in hand, no ground broken, a now longer timeline due to land use appeals, plus collecting, quote, additional political scrutiny for the project and the PWB, and might I add, the city council. Not a good horse to keep betting on, especially considering that I've heard tell that the plaintiffs in the LUBA appeal are ready, prepared, and frankly itching to continue the fight up to the State Court of Appeals and even to the Oregon Supreme Court, which would necessarily impose a long delay. No, this is not a good horse to keep betting on. In a December 5, 2023 article in Water Online, which is self-described as a valuable resource for water and wastewater professionals for more than 25 years, Portland has the highest household water bill of the 50 largest cities in the U.S. Yeah, here in the Pacific Northwest, renowned for its water. By contrast, dry old San Antonio, Texas was listed at roughly $19 per household monthly, with water-rich Portland at over $121 monthly, over 10 times as high. But no, with mitigation efforts, they'll only raise the rates 8.1% per year till 2030. That's good. Terribly thoughtful. Overall, this project is not a good Cadillac horse to keep betting on, especially when trying to avoid increased political scrutiny.
Thank you, Charles.
Angela Todd.
Welcome, Angela.
So good afternoon. I'm Angela from PDX Real, and I feel like today I might be one of the, I've not been at this party quite as long, but I am a quick study. And so here's a few things that I think are of interest about this, some of which has already been mentioned. I'll try to put it in my own words. I heard, before we talk about my words, I heard some words today about pride and progress and helping others do well. And I think this city has a problem with greed and self-interest. And while I want everyone to do well, to do it on the backs of other people, it's wrong. We've just had a significant rate increase in our utilities. We've had significant increases in our groceries. This is a nationwide piece. We've had significant increases in our rent, our property tax, our gas, trying to get a little bit more of that 10 cents a gallon. The city can't afford this. We're already losing people. This is not a we have to. This is we want to, because we're progressive. And we'll take out anybody financially to get it as long as we get ours. It's got to stop. We cannot eat our own tail as a city and expect that eventually the snake will not die. Three of you are running for mayor. We just brought this fight to Portland through PDX Real in the last 24 hours. Those of you that are going to stay in office, Commissioner Ryan, you as well, will be paying attention and we'll be talking about this. Only thing that's required federally is this UV filtration. That's all we can afford. Care about your city and your family and your community more than your own self-interest. Thank you.
Thank you.
Loretta Guzman.
Welcome, Loretta. Thank you for being here.
Thank you. Good to see everybody. Hi, my name is Loretta Guzman. I'm an enrolled tribal member of the Shoshone-Bannock tribes. I am here today to speak for the land and for the people who live and care for this land. The land and the people in the rural area of Carpenter are in danger. Their livelihood and the plant life in this area can and will be impacted by this chemical treatment plant that the Portland Water Bureau has planned to move forward with. Farmland and farming is crucial for food supply and food security. This can change the water and harm the food supply. The city of Portland is willing to take farmland and negatively disturb the surrounding farms for Portland's problem and make it this community's problem. Chemicals will impact climate change, as our city always seems to be so concerned about. Now is the time to be concerned for the 363 trees that will be cut down and the disruption of the native plants in this area that may never come back once they are disturbed. We say our kids are our future. Well, here are kids and families living in this area. I'm asking that you deny and pull the plug on this application and figure out another plan that is safer and more cost-effective for us all. I am also a business and property owner in the city of Portland, but the problem here is bigger than just money. It's time for our city to go back to the drawing boards and figure out a new plan and get rid of this outdated, harmful plan. As an Indigenous woman and the land we call Mother Earth, Sogo Bia is sacred to our Native people. Thank you.
Thank you.
Tara Fall.
Hi, Tara.
Guys, I've never been to one of these,
Well,
and
welcome.
I'm
Thanks for being
terrified
here.
of public speaking, so enjoy. I'm going with the personal testimony housewife angle here, which I haven't heard anyone use, so I'm always the odd one out. Increasing the cost of our water is going to burden people who are already burdened with expensive utility bills. For instance, a family in Boise with a large home pays about $50 per month for their water, while my smaller home pays $140. As a family of 6 with 4 kids in the house all day, we already skimp on showering. We don't flush the toilet after we pee. I've given up on enjoying gardening. We don't do summertime water play. I don't let my kids do the dishes because it's too stress-inducing to watch them be less efficient than I am at obsessively turning the tap off. When we have house guests over who like to shower every day and run the faucet, I cringe. During a particularly difficult time financially, I actually considered capturing our shower water and disposing of it in the yard by the bucketful to avoid paying for water leaving our house. Our consumption has not increased in the past year, but the cost has gone from an average of $121 to $140 per month. In a previous home in one of the most wealthy counties in the country, we were paying an average of $55 per month, while not being afraid to fill a bathtub or water a garden. A family in Nevada that irrigates their half-acre told me they pay $70 per month for water. In Las Vegas, a single-family home may pay $90. In South Texas, someone pays $55. In San Antonio, $40. In Kansas City, $50. I polled people, and they even showed me their water bills. We have some of the most abundant water in the country, but some of the highest costs for something so necessary to everyone. Next door is littered with people who can't believe their first water bill after moving here is real. I know people who literally left Portland over this issue. Please reconsider burdening us further. The government needs to figure out how to live within the constraints of money like the rest of us. And somebody mentioned that our reputation would be tarnished if we had to boil our water. But I would argue that Portland's reputation is already in the toilet. And boiling water would just match some of the third world visuals we already have in our streets. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Maps has a comment.
Quickly, before you go, I want to, I think disagree on the larger issue here, but I do appreciate you being here today. I am moved by some of the challenges you face trying to pay your water bill. One of the things I do encourage you to do is to check out some of the financial assistance programs that we offer over at the Water Bureau. You could just Google Portland Water Bureau utility assistance, and I
We've
suspect
looked
that we
into
have a program that could help you out.
My family, we have a single income. I'm a housewife.
Yeah.
We are neither wealthy enough to afford to live here or poor enough to get assistance for anything. So.
Well, I encourage you, we have evolved those programs. I'd be really surprised if we couldn't help you out. So if you haven't looked, especially if you haven't looked recently, this has been one of the things I've really emphasized since I've been here. But I could be wrong, but I do want you to know that
I'll look it
there's a
up.
resource there.
Thank
Okay.
you for
Thank you.
encouragement.
Did you say this is your first time testifying here?
Yeah, I've never been here before.
Welcome. Thanks. We appreciate it. Thanks for making the effort to be here.
Tamara Wensank. Tamara's online.
Hi there.
Hi,
Hi there, can you hear me?
Yep, we hear you, Tam.
Hi. Fantastic. Thank you so much for the opportunity to comment. My name is Tammy Wensank. I just want to read a few comments. First, Portland Water Bureau would have you believe that they are required to build this plant. The truth is the requirement is simply to treat for crypto. The fact that the Water Bureau proposed the most expensive option really shouldn't be Portlanders' problem. How is it that San Francisco, facing the very same problem with its water source in the Sierra Nevada mountains, also a beautiful, pristine, and very protected water source from public eye, how is it that they are treating with UV for just a fraction of the cost? Currently, 38% of every ratepayer dollar goes to debt service for past projects. Now we're going to add debt service of this project. Why should Portland ratepayers of all people be strapped with some of the highest water bills in the country? We have one of the most beautiful, long-standing water supplies in the country. The South Shore well field was developed to provide a backup source of water when the bull run is offline or needs to be supplemented. The reality is the cost of this trophy plant will continue to rise. Ratepayers will be strapped with this massive debt for generations. A couple of other points I want to make is they keep talking about the turbidity. Well, spending $2 billion to address a future and potential concern, I don't know that this is the right time and space for that. The only requirement is to treat for crypto. With utility rates already soaring, businesses closing, and a shrinking ratepayer base, now is not the time to spend this kind of money and burden residents with yet another unaffordable utility bill. Scale back to what's actually required. Just treat the crypto, nothing more. There's no historical evidence, and I mean evidence. I mean an event that we did not get through by just switching to the South Shore wells. There's no historical evidence that we need a $2 billion filtration plant built solely for a future potential concern. The simplest answer is usually the best. UV will satisfy the EPA requirement. OHA and the Water Bureau can easily amend their compliance agreement to pivot back to UV, and it can likely be done on time. If the council allows the Water Bureau to push forward with filtration, it will have land use battles and delays, ever increasing construction costs, untenable and expensive conditions of approval, and will result exactly what Commissioner Maps wants to avoid, which is the fines and the boil water notices. And again, those boil water notices, they're not out there for every single resident. They are going to be boil water advisories for infants and the elderly and immune compromised. I don't want any of my neighbors to have to boil their water, regardless of their health status. However, I don't want any of my neighbors to not be able to turn their water faucet on for fear of not being able to pay their water bill. Thank you.
Thank you.
Sam Dyack. Sam is online.
Sam, are you able to unmute? Maybe we can.
I'm here.
Oh, there you are. It looks like you have two mics open potentially, Sam.
Actually, I think I will decline testimony. What I needed to say has already been very well put.
All right, thank you.
So I will pass on it.
All right, thank you for being here. We appreciate it.
You bet.
James Faison.
Hello, James. Thank you for being here.
Thank you. I think everything that's been said very well by Maurice Rahman about the fact that this would do for small minority and general contractors. What did that do for general contractors is off the chain. I came here from New York City, from Brooklyn, New York at 15, and where I was sleeping on the streets in the Job Corps. And since then, these programs of developing has made my company thrive. I have a very successful company. I'm in partnerships with Kiewit and MWH on supposedly this project going forward. And we're working together diligently to make sure that we're doing the right thing for capturing costs and money. So it's not something that we take lightly. And I agree with Maurice that everything that we do will help push this project forward. I understand costs, and I understand that it sometimes we have to take and dig a little deeper into things, but I think that this is something that's a must, and it cost is not going to get cheaper. You know, you got to understand construction, and a whole lot of people that are talking don't understand construction. It's not going to get cheaper to build this. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That concludes testimony.
All right, colleagues, any further comments, thought, questions? If not, I'll find my notes.
I just had one.
Yeah, go ahead.
Commissioner Mapside, our staff, can we just remind again on the decision back, I guess going back to 2017, why we chose filtration versus UV and why that continues to be the recommendation of staff?
Sure. Well, actually, why don't I pull up Eddie? Eddie?
If I understood clear, I'm just going off of testimony. That went back to the original recommendation from Commissioner Fish in 2017. Have I understood that correctly?
I'm going to, Mr. Campbell, do you want to jump in on this one?
Yeah, Council, in 2017, the Water Bureau approached a recommendation to the council that was essentially to build UV, but to plan for and begin the work to prepare for filtration. And at that time, the council conversation was focused on, should we bother to have this intermediary step of building UV when it was known that UV only addressed treating for crypto and wouldn't provide the other resilience benefits that filtration brings, including, protection against the kind of risks that we've talked about today, fires, landslides, future climate risk, that sort of thing. And so through that conversation, the council made a decision to, instead of this sort of twofold approach, to move straight to confirming filtration as the preferred technology. And with that, then we sat down with the Oregon Health Authority, and that's when the schedule for the BCA was established and the technology then was locked in as our compliance approach.
I think I followed, but I just want to repeat it back as the best I can interpret. So at the time, they were both legitimate methods of mitigating the risks against crypto, but filtration was chosen in the name of general community resiliency to other risks to our water supply.
That's a good summary, correct.
Okay. I think I'm good for now.
Okay. Good. If there's nothing else, I'll entertain a motion to accept Report 299.
So moved.
Commissioner Mapps moves. Can I get a second?
Second.
Commissioner Rubio seconds. Any further discussion on the report? Seeing none, call the roll.
Ryan.
I had a lot of things to say, but it's been a long day.
It's not over.
I know we have that session tonight. So just to get to the point, I really appreciate the Water Bureau for the several meetings we've had over the last month on this issue. I want to acknowledge the progress that I've experienced in terms of workforce especially. That was one of my main issues, and I felt like today it finally really landed with a lot of clarity. Clearly, there's a lot of support here. What I decided to accept is kind of like the big pipe project, which is necessary, and we had a lot of pride in that. And I think ratepayers, although it was expensive, they realized what they were getting out of it. I think we need to continue to make that same case with this, and that's what we're doing right now. And why we do these big projects, what we didn't want to experience was a large contractor, shipping in labor and then shipping them out when it was done. So we just wouldn't have any prosperity gains for our own local community. So to see the contractors that are here today supportive of this and knowing that they will see what we talked about actually earlier today, going, having more pre-apprentice, going to apprentice, going to journey, all the way up to the foreman. So we have an opportunity to really build that kind of generational wealth and those skills, and that's really good for the long term. So there's a lot of multipliers to this issue that goes beyond the rates. On the rates, I think we just need more clarity. I know you're working on that. I know we've had conversations about that. I know as the big pipe was ending, what I heard is that those rates would go down, this would go up. When it ends, it would stabilize. So I just think we need more clarity when you combine the two bills as we keep going forward. So again, I just appreciate the growth that I've experienced in terms of workforce. I can tell now we have the community behind the project in terms of that very important point. And so with that alone, I will accept this report.
Gonzalez?
Our current charter doesn't afford us the opportunity to abstain. So over here, we have to vote. And I've struggled with this project since I've been on council. It's a complex one. It's not necessarily one that we wanted to do. We're reading it as an obligation with diminishing options as alternative. The question of filtration versus UV, you've reminded us of the history there. I appreciate it. We do have to make investments in community resilience that are difficult. And so I do think that, it's a difficult pill to swallow because it's got a price tag that's in addition to the legal compliance here. But I'm not sure it's the wrong one either. I would strongly encourage that we find a way to bring the community on this. I don't think we heard a single person testify in favor of this outside of the state. That's of concern. We didn't hear from the pub testifying in favor of it. That's a concern. And I'm not sure how to bridge that with community right now. We've got overwhelming outreach from ratepayers. I have to think if we got a single one in favor of this. And so it's a challenge. We interpret this as a legal obligation. The state is on board with our pathway. I am personally somewhat swayed by the thoughts around community resilience because, again, that is a tough thing to invest in, and it always adds cost, and it's frustrating in a lot of ways. So I'm going to vote in favor of accepting this report today. But whatever we can do to bring in, supplement outside experts to take a second look and to bring along community, because there's a big delta between the Water Bureau and ratepayers right now on this one, and has been here the entire time I've been on council and doesn't seem to be getting better. I have to defer to your expertise at certain level, but having another pair of eyes taking a look would be much appreciated.
Maps?
I want to thank the Water Bureau for today's presentation, and I want to thank everyone who testified today, both in favor of this project and folks who raised some questions and concerns about this project. I think I heard some good ideas today, and I'm committed to taking the best ideas that I heard on the table and moving forward with them. One of the ideas that I think would serve the people of Portland well would be to stand up an outside advisory group to help advise the Water Bureau on cost containment for this project moving forward. So colleagues, I will work in conjunction with you and my colleagues in the Water Bureau and frankly, folks in the community to get that stood up and to get a set of fresh eyes on this project to make sure that as we move forward, we are doing everything that we can to contain cost. Again, according to everything that I've seen, the biggest risk to us staying within budget are delays, which is one of the reasons why I am managing this project diligently, trying to move it forward step by step. I will continue to do that for as long as I hold this particular seat. I know that this has been a long day and a challenging one for a lot of you, so I appreciate your political courage today. But this is what the work of building the city of tomorrow is all about, which is why I vote aye.
Rubio.
I want to thank everybody who's presented today, and also thanks to Commissioner Matz and his team for keeping us updated on the progress of this project. For keeping us updated on this project, and to those who have written in and testified. I want to appreciate your comments and your concerns about cost and oversight. And I do welcome additional steps to make sure that we have meaningful ratepayer and engagement and oversight. It's a complex project, but I do believe this project needs to move forward and that we have no time to lose. Water protection has taken on a new meaning in today's climate reality, and for this reason, stakes are higher than they were in the past, and we have to plan for extreme weather, for fires, and other potential catastrophic emergencies that could really devastate our region, and access to clean water would really be devastating as well to residents of Portland. So we should take some protective action now. I also want to appreciate the work done by all parties to get to the significant planned COVID participation on this project. And thank you, Maurice and Mr. Faison, for your comments and all those who showed up as well in support. It's important that we keep striving for better outcomes, and I want to thank folks for holding our feet to the fire and making sure we demand higher workforce standards on all these projects. So thanks again to everyone who was here today. I vote aye to accept the report.
Wheeler.
For every person who testified today about the impact of potential rate increases and costs, there are 1,000 other people in the community who could not be here who probably feel exactly the same way. And that's one of the reasons that I've called for us to hold the line on taxes, fees, and utility rate increases. And we heard really good, very personal testimony, and I appreciate, frankly, the willingness of people to come forward and talk about the sacrifices they are already making, even before projected rate increases have come online. People are at a breaking point, and what I had hoped and what I think our colleagues in the bureaus have heard today is that our residents are really struggling in this economic environment. And we have an obligation to do everything we possibly can to limit the cost increases to this project. As the cost of this project goes up, so too do the stakes, and so too does the cost to every person who lives in this jurisdiction. And I'm mindful of that. I'm appreciative, colleagues, of you, and I'm appreciative of the Bureau agreeing that we do need to have some independent analysis, financial analysis. It is not sufficient from my perspective, and again, it's not because I don't trust our employees, I do, but we need tight financial controls over this project, and it would be really helpful to have a designated skeptic looking over all of our shoulders, you know, operationally, but us too, to make sure that we are holding the line on every potential cost increase in this project, that we are doing what is required and not padding it with additional costs that are not necessary. making sure that what we are doing is in fact in clear alignment with the objectives of this project, and that we're being transparent with the public. Several people who testified today mentioned transparency and understanding, what's going on in this project as being important. I feel that same way. It is difficult for me to sit here as mayor and every couple of months get a briefing and hear, surprise, the cost has gone up another 100 million, then 200 million, then 300 million. We need to keep people in the loop, not just us as elected officials, but the people who pay the bills. They need to be in the loop too and know what's going on with this project. So I hope that is taken to heart. I obviously will support this report. I've supported this project all along, but again, the cost continues to escalate, and I will keep asking questions about at what point, if this keeps escalating at this rate, do we do something differently? Because I've got to believe we are now at the point where those rate increases are close to not being accurate projections of what the actual rate increases will be. And that's why I want independent analysis. I vote aye, and the report is accepted. To report number 300, call the roll.
Ryan? Gonzalez?
Aye.
Maps?
Aye.
Rubio?
Aye.
Wheeler?
Aye. I'm sorry, I
Mr.
needed
Mayor?
to, yeah, go ahead, move.
I so moved.
Second, somebody? I'll second it. The report's moved, seconded, and you took the vote. Call on me.
Wheeler?
Aye. The report's accepted. 301, I'll entertain a motion.
So moved.
Commissioner Maps moves the second, please. Commissioner Ryan seconds. Any further discussion? Please call the roll.
Ryan?
Aye.
Gonzalez?
Aye.
Maps?
Aye.
Rubio?
Aye.
Wheeler?
Aye. The report is accepted. Legal counsel, can I get away with that the way I did that? It was a little sketchy, but thanks. Long day. Colleagues, thank you. We are adjourned until 6:30.